Hey guys, welcome to the video. Phil Harris here. In this video, I'm going to teach you absolutely everything you need to know to go from not knowing anything about DJing at all, almost like you've never heard the term DJing before, up to a point where you'll be able to put together a professional DJ set on club standard gear. So think of this as if you just became famous and in the next 2 or 3 hours you needed to go and stand at a festival stage in front of professional DJ decks and understand exactly what you needed to do. That's what this video is for. Now, I'm going to quickly run you through everything I'm going to be covering in this video. But just to note beforehand, I will also be time-stamping all of these things along the bottom of this video. So you see that red cursor down there? You can scroll along and see each of these sections, and I may have even added in more sections than this. So I'm just going to teach you absolutely everything. So let me show you exactly what you're going to learn in this video. So first things first, what is DJing? Next thing, DJ software and what software you need to use and everything you need to know about that software to use these decks. Number 3, creating your first playlist and how to use the software. Number 4, where to get music from for your DJ sets and where to actually download it, because that's going to be the most important thing for you as a DJ. The next thing, BPM and grid. A lot of this stuff may not make sense, but it is going to make sense as we go through the video. BPM and grid is a massive part of DJing. The next thing, mixing in key, how to know what songs to go to and how to make your DJ set sound as professional as possible. The next one, the basics of CDJs, these DJ decks here. The next thing, the basics of the mixer, just so you can understand how everything works. The next thing, hot cues versus memory points and why you'd use either of those things, and I'll explain to you exactly what those things are. After that, we're going to be going into beats, bars, and phrases. This is the absolute quintessential knowledge you would need to understand to be a DJ. After that, we're going to be talking about how to set your hot cues and memory points like a pro, exactly what the pros do to make sure they are set up the best they can to go and put on a live performance. After that, I'm going to be talking to you about beat matching. This is, again, the quintessential knowledge you need as a DJ. Just so you know, a lot of this stuff might seem basic, but actually in the world of DJing, the basics is actually 95% of it. Once you've absolutely nailed all the fundamental stuff, you're honestly 95% of the way there. And I just want to say before we continue through this video will have something for absolutely everybody. Whether you're brand new or even if you're a professional DJ, I'm going to be showing you some cool stuff in this video. Next thing, introducing headphones, how you'd use them, why you'd use them. After that, we're going to be going into frequency mixing, which is the mixer, essentially. How to blend from one song to another song in a very professional way. So it's almost invisible. You're going from one song to the next. After that, we're going to be going into beat matching by ear, just in case you need to just fully, okay, here's the thing. You're never really going to need this one, right? I'm just going to be honest with you. The CDJs are very reliable and they will work. But as we know, sometimes things can go wrong, and it's good to just have that knowledge and the ability to do it by ear, because ultimately it's going to make you a better DJ. We're going to be talking about the sync button, or as they call it, the dreaded sync button. Like, why is there so much controversy around this one single button in the DJ community? We're going to be talking about the tempo slider and the beauty of that. I'm going to be covering emergency transitions. So if you're in the club and, okay, it's not really working very well, we need to get from one song to the next. How do you do it without just looking like an absolute amateur? We're going to be going into mashups and talking about that. I'm going to be talking about the V10 mixer, which is this one here, which is the highest end mixer that Pioneer has. And we're also going to be talking about the Nexus 2, which is more of the kind of club standard mixer, which again, I'm going to discuss more in the video. I'm going to be talking about the brand new CDJ 3000 X and the differences there, and I'm also going to be covering this thing here, which is called the RMX. Again, we're going to be covering all of this. Now, my goal in this video is to make it that by the end of this video, you never need to watch another DJ video ever, and you're never ever going to need to buy a DJ course. Having said that, I do have DJ courses. So if you watch this video and you're like, you know what, I would actually like to learn along with Phil in a very step-by-step way, I'll leave the links below this video. And the other thing which I also want to mention, these days, it's becoming more and more the case that you are going to find it far harder to get into a club and specifically playing a festival unless you produce your own music. And I just want to talk about this briefly. The top DJs on the planet, David Guetta, Tiesto, Marshmello, even James Hype, they're actually there because of the music that they make, not because of their skills behind the DJ decks. In other words, what I'm going to teach you in this video, you would be able to go and play any festival on the planet, which is crazy, right? I mean, that's insane. In the next couple of hours, you could play any festival in the world and you wouldn't be doing anything that different to what David Guetta does every night of the week. So how is he there? Because of his skills? No, because of his music. People go and see David Guetta or Calvin Harris because they like David Guetta songs and they like Calvin Harris songs. The DJs that get the biggest club spots have the highest streaming numbers on Spotify or other streaming services. Don't believe me? Go and look at any of the top headline spots on the planet for any festival. Go to Spotify and there's a little thing that'll show you how many monthly streams they've got. So the one thing I also want to say in all this is if you really want to take DJing seriously, you've got to learn how to produce. I actually have a one-to-one mentorship program where I take DJs like you who maybe have no knowledge of how to produce their own dance tracks, and I work with them on a one-to-one basis over 6 months, and I guarantee a record label, something that no one else on this planet does. I guarantee that you will get a record label. Now, getting a record label actually is just step one. But I will get you to a point where you're good enough to get a record label, essentially is what I'm saying. Now, if you are interested, I'll also leave the link below. Also, if you go to edmcoaching.com, you can go through and I will give you some free coaching today that will teach you how to make your very first dance track for free so you can get a taste of what this is like. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay guys, so we're going to start with the absolute basics of what is DJing, okay? Now everyone's going to have their own definition of what this is, but for me, DJing is all about the audience, okay? What you want to do as a DJ is keep your audience entertained and usually keep them dancing, right? So let's actually look at what DJing actually is. Clubs want to make money. How do they make money? They make money with entry fees and drinks being sold. In order to do that, they want to keep the people dancing. So DJs are brought in to make the clubs money, right? So what the clubs want you to do as a DJ is keep people on the dance floor. Why? Because when people are dancing, they're usually drinking more, so therefore buying more drinks. And if you're a good DJ and you keep people in that club all night, they stay in that club, and again, it makes them more money. And if you're a well-known DJ, people will pay more to get into that club to see you. So essentially, your job as a DJ is to entertain people and keep them on the dance floor. That's really important because we're kind of living in a world now where you might be fooled by going on Instagram that DJing is all about doing clever tricks and moving your hands all over the place and stuff like that. And whoa, look at that DJ. I'm telling you, for 98% of DJs out there, you're not doing clever tricks. You're just looking at the audience, you're going, are they liking this music? No. Okay, I'm going to try a different song. I'm going to try this different angle over here. I used to do wedding DJing, and I actually think that wedding DJing is a great thing for DJs because you walk in and you've got an age category of 2-year-olds up to 87-year-olds, and you have to pick what song you think is going to get them all going. It's a great skill to actually have a couple of years of wedding DJing under your belt, believe it or not, because these days I go to Ministry of Sound in London, which is like a premium nightclub where they know I'm going to be playing tech house. I load my decks up with tech house music and I go and play tech house music all night. And guess what? No one requests any songs. You're just there, you're playing tech house music and they're all loving tech house music. They've come to see it, right? It's actually like it's not really that hard. Like, they come to listen to bangers and I play bangers. But when you're in a wedding, now you got to actually start thinking about it, right? How am I going to orchestrate this room to get them all on the dance floor? You start doing interesting things like, and I'm going off subject here. And by the way, this video might be me going off subject, but again, you can jump ahead if it doesn't interest you. But I used to do interesting things as a wedding DJ. So for example, my technique was I would always start the evening playing like Motown. Why would I play Motown? Because it got the mums and dads going. Once you got the mums and dads up with a bit of Stevie Wonder, specifically, by the way, the mums, once the mums were on the dance floor, the daughters would join the mums. Now you got the hot girls on the dance floor, now in come the men. Now the interesting thing is, once the men are drunk enough to get on the dance floor, they typically hang around. Once you got the men on the dance floor, now you start playing music that's going to really get them and the energy up. Because once you got all the men jumping around and screaming, the energy in the room is high enough that it just spreads like wildfire. This is a really interesting thing about DJing, is when you get good at it, what you're actually doing is like almost a bit of psychology. You want the critical mass of the room to be loving the music. Have you ever had this? You're out at a party and music that you don't actually really love is on. But because everyone's going absolutely crazy to this music, you're jumping about, screaming. I'm telling you now, I've been at many weddings where I'm jumping about screaming to Taylor Swift. Would I ever listen to Taylor Swift? No, but because everyone's just screaming along to the words and drunk, there you are doing it, right? The DJ did his job perfectly. He got me screaming Taylor Swift, right? And so you're beginning to see now, this is a very interesting psychological thing where you've got to get the audience in the palm of your hands. And that's why weddings are brilliant, because it causes you to actually have to think about this stuff rather than just going and like playing another banger in Ministry of Sound, even though that's fun as well. So that's what DJing is. Now, let's actually talk about it here. When you first begin, and even James Hype talked about this, when you first begin, you kind of believe that the DJs are there making songs on the decks. Obviously, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you realize that's not the case. All you're really doing is you're loading one song into this deck here, watching the audience. You come over here, select another song, and then your only real skill job thing to do, that's an awful sentence, not very good English at all, is to blend from this song to this song in a way that's pleasing enough that you don't draw attention to yourself. Again, this isn't like a sexy video. This is me being completely real with you right now. Everybody thinks you've got to do these really magic transitions. You don't. All you want to do is transition from one song to the other without the audience going, what the hell is this guy doing? That's it, right? If you can do that and you can kind of stay invisible, you're doing a great job. If you try and do something overly technical and you cock it up and people go, what the? Now you're a bad DJ. So this is going to be a theme that runs through this video and a theme that runs through my ethos towards DJing, which is keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. You know, like James Hype is one of very, very few DJs who goes out there and optionally does difficult stuff, right? Honestly, not many true DJs do a lot of the stuff he does. We're going to be covering James Hype and some of his techniques later in this video. So that's what DJing is. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about DJ software. Now, just so you know, there's lots of different DJ software out there. There's Serato, there's Traktor, there's Rekordbox. But all you need to know in this video is if you're going to be playing clubs on CDJs, the only software you should really be using is Rekordbox. Now, technically, there are ways you can now use Serato and export it and still use it on Rekordbox, but I wouldn't do that if I was you. I would go straight in at Rekordbox. Now, the second thing which I'm going to say is what you're going to need, which is different to entry-level DJ decks, is a USB. Because we are going to be using this as a program, and the sole purpose of this program for us on pro-level DJ decks is to get music onto one of these. So when we turn up at a club, we stick it in and all of our music is there. So let me explain this in a little bit more detail. We've got Rekordbox here. And if you go into the top left-hand corner, there's a drop-down with different sections of this program. So we've got performance mode. Now this is kind of like the most relevant mode if you are a beginner DJ, which I'm guessing that actually the vast majority of you will be using this. If you get entry-level DJ decks like the DJs, essentially what they are is controllers. So you plug your computer directly into the DJ decks, and the DJ decks then just control this program. So the whole point is here you can see this kind of, you can kind of see there's 2 decks. So the way it would work on entry-level DJ decks is once you've got your playlist, and I'm gonna come back to creating playlists and stuff in a second, but essentially you would go and get a track and you drag it into this deck, it'd be loaded onto the left-hand deck, and you come and get another track and drag it into the right-hand deck. And then as you do things on your DJ decks, it will affect this screen here, right? Now, I'm not going to go into that in too much detail because, as I said, this is about pro-level DJ decks. So we're going to worry more about this little thing here. So that's that. Now, the big difference, of course, being that the CDJ 3000s are independent computers. They're not controlling anything. It's all built in. So we just want to get the music onto it. Okay. So in this video, I'm not going to concern myself too much with all these knobs and buttons and switches because we're going to be covering on the decks out there. Now, we're going to be talking mostly about export mode. This is where we're going to be essentially putting together our playlists and exporting it onto a USB. So let me just cover the absolute basics here. So the way it works is quite simple, really. First things first, you need to create a playlist. So you can come to this section here. They might be folded up, they might not, but you open it up, playlist, and then you hit this little plus button, and you can call it whatever you want. Okay, I'm gonna call this one YouTube. Click enter, and it's done. You now have a different playlist, and you can scan through these different playlists, okay? Now the next thing, and it's slightly off screen, but if you have a track, you just have it anywhere on your computer, for example, on the desktop, and even though you can't see it because I haven't kind of configured this very well, but you just grab it and drag it from anywhere on your screen or any hard drive device, and you just hover it over this section here, and a little plus will appear, and you drop it, and it drops it in, okay? And that song is now in this playlist. Now, if I want to, I can grab this song and also go and drag it into any other playlist. When you do that, it doesn't move it from one playlist to another, as in like it's now no longer in this place, it's in this playlist. It copies it. So it's now in this playlist and this playlist here, okay? So that's absolute basics of how you create a playlist and put music in. Now, the next thing you need to know is when you drop a track in, it will automatically analyze this track, and it'll give you 2 critical bits of information, which is the key of the track and the BPM of the track. Now, just in case you drop it in and it doesn't do this, I'll just show you really quickly. Top left-hand corner, it'll say record box on a Mac, or if you're on a PC, it'll be similar. Click on it and go to preferences, and it'll open up this box here. And you want to go to analysis, and you've got to make sure you've ticked BPM and key. I never have phrases. I feel like that always gets it wrong. And again, I'm going to be explaining BPM, key, all this stuff later in the video. So you just need to know if you wanted to analyze these things, you've got to tick these 2 boxes here, okay? Okay, so the tracks have been put in and analyzed. Now, 99% of the time, record box is actually going to get this spot on. But at this point, I do have to cover what happens if it gets it wrong. Now, the complicated thing about this is I'm going to be talking about things like beats and bars that we haven't covered yet in this video. So you're going to have to kind of bear with me because I am going to be coming onto this in more detail later on. So, as we look at this track here, this Chris Lake song, it's analyzed it, it's 128. And we can see that this grid here looks right. What do I mean by it looks right? You can see these different lines, and there's a red line that happens every 4 beats. That's a bar. I'm going to be covering that more later on. And we can see everything looks like it's going to the grid properly. Now, another thing is, there's a thing here called a metronome. A metronome is something that's used to count music, right? And it tells you how fast you're playing. Usually a pianist would play to a metronome to make sure that they're playing at the right speed. Now, you can turn this on by just activating it, and then you can choose how loud you want the metronome to be. Now, if I hit play, I'll hear it beeping along with the beat. You hear that beep, beep, beep sound, right? Now, if it's wrong, and let's say we know this track's 128 BPM, but let's say it's 120, and just so you know, BPM stands for beats per minute, which is how many beats are there in a minute. So as you can imagine, a faster song would have more beats per minute than a slower song. So if it's the track is 100 BPM, it's going to be a slower tempo song than a faster tempo song, which would be like 140, which would be more like drum and bass. So say this was 120 and it got it wrong. You'd look and you'd pretty much quickly realize something is not right here, okay? Now at this point, there's two things you can do. I have some software here called Mixed In Key. This is great. This is a company and all they do is this software where you drag songs in, it analyzes the tempo, which is the BPM, and the key of the track. Now I will typically drag my songs into this first, have Mixing Key analyze the song in the same way Rekordbox did a second ago. It tags those tracks with what Mixing Key thinks the tempo and BPM is. And now when we drag it into Rekordbox, we will be using Mixing Key's knowledge rather than Rekordbox's knowledge, okay? You don't have to do this. Rekordbox is very good and 90% of the time it gets it right. But I'm just giving you like a bit of a fail-safe here in case it ever gets it wrong and you're like, actually, I want the next level up. Mixing Key is good. And like I said, because this is all they do, I kind of trust them, especially with things like the key of the track over Rekordbox. But for 99% of you, don't bother with it, okay? So if you notice the track is off key, that's the first thing you can do. Second thing you can do is just open up some like Google and go and find the song Galvanize Chris Lake and type BPM and key. And you will, lo and behold, find the BPM and key of the song pretty easily. So you can then just come here and type in what the new amount of what you think it is. And you can see like it already looks better. And if you find that the grid is slightly off still, like this, just come to the very first beat. Specifically has to be a beat, by the way. And what I mean by this is like, you can see that's the first kick of the track. Sometimes a track will come in with like a bit of white noise or a vocal. It's got to be a beat. Come to the very first beat right at the beginning like that, and then you hit this button, bang, and it should snap to the grid. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that, but I'm just giving you this bit of information. The second thing, which is quite advanced as well, but I do want to cover it in this video, is you can actually edit songs. Now, not really edit as in you can go in and change vocals and beats and stuff like that, but you can just extend and swap around areas of the track. My advice to you, never do this. I never do this. Just go and look for the extended versions of the track, and they'll have nice long intros and outros anyway. However, I do want to just show you this just in case you weren't aware of it. Top left, you can come to edit, and then you can drag a track in like this. Now the best thing you can do here is click this browser button here, which will open up this editing screen. You can go to a section of the song. So let's say we want to go to the outro here, and you can, if you want to, select an area of the track like this, and it will tell you here you've got 4 bars, and now you can do different things. So for example, you could clone it, which would just duplicate it along like this, bang, and now you've got this extra 4 bars at the end of the track. Or you can copy it and you can go to a different part of the track and you can paste it in and it'll move everything along. So for example, you would never do this really, but you want to come and grab this here. Let me just click off, grab this area here, these 4 bars. I'm going to click copy, and then we could go to a completely different part of the track. Never do this. Click here, and then you can go paste, and bang, it's in there, right? Now, the question is whether that moved the whole track along, because there's another button here called insert. So I think insert might move everything along and paste might just copy and paste on top. Never do this, guys. Never ever do this, right? So you can go and copy and you can extend things just like I showed you there. Again, we haven't covered it yet, but if you want to do this, always do the right amount. So for example, do really ideally 8 bars, you know, so it kind of sounds good in phrasing. We're going to be covering phrasing later on. And once you've done, you come up here and you can save it as a new track. Don't do this. Don't do it, honestly. Really don't, especially if you're at the beginning stages. So that's it. So now we've covered creating a playlist, putting tracks in, what to do if the grid is off, how to extend songs. And now all you've got to do is come and right click on a playlist like this. Make sure your USB is in there and it will recognize the USB down here. Right click here like this, and now you can go to export and you click the USB you want it to export onto, and it'll say, you know, this already exists. You want to, you know, yeah, that's okay, bang. And now it's on your USB. So now let's cover where to get your music from. Okay, next part of the video, we're going to be talking about where to go and get your music from. This is obviously the most important thing because you as a DJ are going to be going out there and playing music that your audience like and what you like as well. So you've got to be able to go and find good tracks. So I'm going to show you exactly my thought process and how I go about sourcing and putting together sets. So first things first, Spotify. My main go-to thing. It's so good because you've got all these different areas. I'm not going to run you through Spotify, but you've got the Discover page. And the best thing is, as soon as you find a song that you quite like, you can just come over here, hit these 3 buttons, and go to radio. Where is it? Go to Song Radio. As soon as you click it, Spotify goes and says, if you like this song, everybody else on the planet who likes this song also likes these songs. The way you got to look at it is Spotify is like every other platform out there, and they want to keep people on there. So they're going to now play you songs that they think you're going to like based on what other people like as well to keep you on the platform. The best thing about this is it goes and gives you a ton of music that you might not have ever heard of before that's similar to the track you like. And so you can begin to see how you go down a rabbit hole with this. You can obviously go and check out the artist's most popular songs. You can just constantly discovering stuff. For me, it's the best platform to just come and discover stuff. Then you come over here, you can create playlists, and you just draw and drag all these different songs in. So often I have like a ministry playlist, which I'm like, oh, that's a great song. I'll play that in my next ministry set. So why not? I'm on my phone usually. I just click it and go add to playlist, add to ministry. Bang, it's done. Or you just drag it and drop it. And so when I'm not DJing, I'm often just listening to music and accumulating the music that I like, okay? Now you've got that playlist ready to download. Now, when I download it, let me actually just minimize this. When I download it, I often go to Beatport, slightly out of order here. And Beatport, again, is it's for DJs, right? So you come along and you can come to genres at the top, and they've got every different genre you want. And for me, it's always like tech house music. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come here and go to tech house. This is the boring bit of the video where I try and find it. You've probably already seen it. There it is. Right. And the best thing is you've got the Beatport top 10, right? So you can go and see all the different tracks in that genre, or you can just see the general top 10 of Beatport, but in the specific genre of tech house, I've now got the top 10. I can go and instantly listen to any of these songs. I can go and view the top 100 if I want. So this is amazing for just finding inspiration. And then the great thing about this website is you go ahead and you actually buy it. And I'm not going to run you through the buying process, but that's how you would do it. Now, I want to touch on why you would buy something rather than rip it. There's an argument that when you buy a track, it's higher quality than just ripping it off YouTube, which I'm going to be covering in a moment as well. In my experience, if you're playing on a big professional sound system and it's booming and there's people in the room talking and everyone's drunk, the truth is no one can actually tell the difference between a high quality file and a not high quality file. I know a load of haters are going to hate me saying that, but I'm just telling you, a room with people in it screaming and blah, 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 no one can tell the difference between a slightly lower MP3 and a slightly higher MP3. But what you wouldn't want to do is rip a song off YouTube, and in YouTube videos, sometimes there's cars screeching around the corner. Sometimes a song comes to a halt and there's something else going on. You would be so embarrassing, and this has happened to DJs. They play a track out, they haven't listened to it through, there's car screeching because it's clearly from the video, stops because Usher's having a phone call halfway through the music video. It's like, you just don't want to go there, okay? So that's why people buy. And also, you know, there's the moral thing. You're kind of looking after the artist by buying music. But I'm telling you now, artists don't make money from people buying their songs on Beatport, I can tell you that. So, Beatport. Those two, by the way, is basically it. Like, I do 90% of my sourcing of music using these two things here. However, I will also sometimes go to YouTube, and you can go and type in, I don't know, Phil Harris DJ set, right? And you go and listen to your favorite DJ, which is obviously me. And look at how pathetic is this? There's hardly any videos at all. I'll tell you why that is because I've stopped putting DJ sets out on YouTube now because of copyright. It's a freaking nightmare. Everything just gets banned, as you can clearly see here. But look, here we are. Here's the DJ set. So you come to this. Now, the best thing about this is you can just Shazam my song. So if you're ever listening to a James Hype set or, you know, any of your favorite DJs and you're like, oh, what song is this? You can just hold your phone out and Shazam it. Okay, and so Shazam is also a great way, and then you go to Beatport and you go and find it. Now again, I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole, but sometimes you can't find it, right? It's unreleased, or it's a version, or it's some sort of mashup, and then you've got to go and source the mashup, which I'm going to be coming on to in a second as well. So Shazamming stuff's really important. Now the next thing I want to tell you about is there's a thing called 1001 track list. And essentially what this is you can go and find famous DJ sets, and when you click on it, it will then run you through that artist, and it'll show you the video at the top, and it'll break down every single song that was played from that artist in that DJ set, which is another great way to go and find music. And it looks here like you can even find sets on SoundCloud and Mixcloud and all this kind of stuff. But this is another place to go. You can come and you can search your favorite artists, find DJ sets they've done recently, look at the playlist. It's a really cool thing to do. And again, you just go and add it and get it on Beatport. And a couple of other places you can go and get stuff. iTunes, obviously. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. Just don't buy it off iTunes if you want. I find it harder to get extended versions on iTunes. Beatport's better for that, and you always want to get extended versions. SoundCloud, another great place to discover music. I'm finding myself using it more and more these days. One of the best things about it is sometimes artists will just give you a download link. I'm not going to bother searching now, but if you go to feed, sometimes you can just instantly see, like, is this it? Share? No. Sometimes there's a download button. You can just go ahead and straight away download the track. I find that happens quite a lot. Couple of other places, I'm just going to rip through these. I don't use these, but they're places you can go. Track Source, similar thing to Beatport. You can go and buy music. Bandcamp, you can come here and get music. Juno.co.uk. Wait, no, this isn't it. It's called Juno Music. Oh, this is it maybe. Yeah, I think it is. Like I said, I don't use it that often. Now you can use these things called DJ pools as well. So the way this works is you have a membership to this site, and then you come in and you download as much music as you want, which is kind of crazy, right? You just pay a fee, you come in to something like DJ City, and there's catalogs and catalogs of music, and you just go download. It's almost like addictive because you can just get it all for just a subscription, which is quite cool. And there's a couple of these as well. I'm not mentioning them all here, but DJ City's one, BPM Supreme is a pretty good one, Zip DJ. Now, the interesting thing from my experience with BPM Supreme and DJ City is you as a DJ can make edits and submit it to DJ City for them to be like, yeah, we're going to put this in our catalog. So the cool thing about DJ City is you'll get loads of mashups and remixes that aren't on YouTube, that aren't anywhere else, and you can find cool mashups. And again, I just want to touch on this really quickly. The reason why mashups are quite cool as a DJ is it keeps your DJ sets interesting. You're playing a track that everybody knows, but you're playing a remix of that track that everybody knows. Suddenly, you're a cool DJ because it's fresh, it's original. They're hearing new stuff. It's cool. Mashups are a massive part of DJing. And you can find a lot of these on things like DJ City, BPM Supreme, Zip DJ. And then there's also sourcing, streaming. So we're back to Beatport here, but especially on the CDJs, you can actually now, if you have an account with them, log in on your DJ decks and stream music right there on the CDJ 3000s and 3000X. And there's another one as well called Beat Source. My knowledge isn't great on this, but I think Beat Source, I'm not sure if you can stream from the CDJs with these, but this is relevant. Now, I actually want to talk about this briefly as well. I don't do this. The reason is I'm a real DJ. I go out and actually do real DJ sets. And I would never in a million years turn up to a club without my USB and go, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm going to log into Beatport. Don't do that. Honestly, if something goes wrong, as you could probably imagine, if the internet's not working or the internet's dodgy or you can't connect or can you imagine like the other DJs finishing their DJ set and you're like there trying to type in your your password for Beatport. No DJ on the planet is doing that, which is why I don't go anywhere near it, because I just use the things I'm actually going to be using. So streaming, I just stay away from. I'm just telling you can do it. Now, the other thing which I did want to talk about briefly is something called clip grab. This is highly illegal and you should not do this. But you can download this program called Clip Grab and you can go and grab any URL from YouTube. So you could go and find a song, drag it into Clip Grab, and it will automatically take the song as an MP3 and you've got a free download of that music. Same thing you can do, you can actually go to SoundCloud, and even if they don't have a download link, you can often type in things like SoundCloud download link, and there'll be some sort of SoundCloud MP3 downloader where you go and get the URL, you drop it in here, and you download it. Don't do this because you're going to go to jail. I'm just saying, right? I know all the haters out there are going to be like, I can't believe you're telling people about this. But the truth is, when you start off DJing, you're going to go and spend thousands of pounds downloading a song, like, I don't know. Like, you're going to go and just get some free music so you can have a play around in your bedroom and get used to it, right? I obviously go and buy music as well, but I will also be honest with you. Every now and again, there's a really cool mashup circulating that you can't buy on Beatport. I can't be bothered to go and recreate it myself on music production software. I don't want to do the mashup live because I don't want to add a level of complication. And so every now and again, if I can only find that mashup on YouTube, I will get it off YouTube. And yes, I'm saying it, I've played it in some of the most premium nightclubs on the planet. And guess what? Everyone's screaming. Everyone's living it. No one's turning around going, oh my God, this is a low quality MP3. No one cares. Okay, so I'm just said it, and yeah, I'm sure the police are going to be coming knocking at my door. So that's that. Next thing as well is Ableton. Again, I just want to touch on this music production software, and this is brilliant stuff. I just want to talk about this, right? Ableton is a program where you come and you essentially create your own tracks. I have to touch on this because, again, I said at the beginning of the video, the biggest DJs on the planet are making their own music. And just to kind of give you a very brief idea of how this works, you essentially you orchestrate music, right? So you have lanes and every lane will do its own thing. So for example, you can have one lane with a kick. The next lane can have a clap, so you add a kick and a clap. You go and add your own bass line in there, Before you know it, you're creating your own music. It's absolutely brilliant. It's the best thing. If any of you are like, okay, that looked awesome, and I'd love to know more about that, I can teach you. And I'm telling you, there are now tools out there which make this so easy. AI is now a big thing. Like, I'm just going to show you this. I don't want to go too off topic, but this vocal here, I touched your hand, you didn't move. I'm going to take some of the effects off here. I touched your hand, you didn't move, but still I hold. That was a robot singing that vocal. I'm telling you guys, technology has got to a point now where I'm writing my own freaking songs. I literally write my own song. This song I wrote, I put it into some software that sung it for me. And now, like I said, you got your kick, you got your clap, you got your bass line, you throw a vocal in there. I touched your hand, you didn't move, but still I hold. It's freaking awesome. If you guys are interested, just reach out to me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Phil Harris Music. Just reach out and just be like, hey Phil, I'd love to work with you, or you send me the word main stage, or I'll leave a link below this video and you can apply to work with me and I'll teach you literally how to do this. It's freaking awesome. Anyway, so that's that. Let's move on to the next bit of the video. So in this part of the video, I want to talk about BPM and grid. I've already talked about it, but I thought the best way I could actually explain this is in Ableton. So as you can see, I've got a kick here that sounds by itself like this. That is known as a beat. Doom, doom, doom. Now, typically, there are 4 beats to a bar. So after 4 beats, we have a bar. And you can see the grid in this program is showing us beats and bars. Now, if I play it, it's going quite quick. If I come to this button here and slow down the BPM, so let's say 100, the BPM is slower. And if I speed it up, okay, that is BPM and that's beats. And then if we come to the DJ software as well, which we've already covered, now this begins to make a little bit more sense. So that's BPM and grid. I'm also going to show you it on the CDJs. Okay, the next thing we're going to be talking about is mixing in key. And I'm actually going to go right back to basics so you can fully understand what this means. Every single song on the planet is written in a specific key. Have you heard of things like C major, A minor, all these different keys? Now, essentially what that means is on a piano, if you picture it on a piano, there's all these different notes. And certain notes will sound good together and certain notes will not sound good together. And some very clever people from the past have gone, these notes harmonically sound nice together, and so write songs just using those notes. Again, I'm on Ableton here because I think this kind of demonstrates it quite well. If we zoom in, we can see all these piano notes. Now, the first thing I need to do is just drag an instrument onto this lane so you can hear it. So I'm going to go and just grab a grand piano and put it in here. Now, if I just turn this on and solo it, and then double click on this, you don't need to know any of this stuff, and drag this up. Now, if I hit any of these notes, you can hear. Right, piano. Now, if I was to put a note here and drag it, let's just say legato. If I was to put a note right next to it, you'll hear that these notes clash. They just sound horrible, right? Let's go and put another one here. They don't sound good together. And it's really important that you hear that, because now I'm going to put notes in a place that would make it sound really nice. Okay, so I'm going to put one note down here and one note here and one note here. Now listen to this. Wow, what a difference, right? And this is why it's really important you hear that. So certain notes work really well together. Now, as you can see on Ableton, you can actually just come and select a key. So I can say C major, and as you can see here, all the purple notes are in that key. I could even fold this away if I wanted to, or scale it. And now wherever I move this note, it sounds amazing. Every combination will sound good together. So what happens is when you're DJing, there's a moment where you're blending from one track into the next. And if you mix 2 tracks that are clashing keys, it can sound awful in the same way I just demonstrated then. People might be able to go, oh, what is going on? Why does that sound horrible? Now, that's the theory. And what I should probably tell you as a DJ tutor is you should always mix in key. But I'm just telling you now, I never mix in key, right? Hardly ever. Remember the first thing I said in this video, I'm watching the audience and I'm playing the music that I think they're gonna like. And some purist DJs might go, well, I'm in this key and this is the song I wanna get to, so I'm gonna go up through these different keys so it sounds perfect. But I'm just telling you, we live in a world now where people are impatient, and just give them what they want, you know? Don't bother going from one song to the next. And I'm just gonna give you this analogy as well. I've had it where I've gone to a wedding and a band's played, right? and everyone's all kind of geared up and everyone's dancing. And at the end, or when they're having their break, they plug in an iPhone with iTunes or Spotify playing with songs that they know people are going to like. And I have many times in my life been at a wedding dancing about like a maniac to a freaking phone that's playing a playlist because it's just the music I like listening to. I've also been to see DJs before who are purist DJs who are going from key to key. Every transition sounds perfect. Every song is nice and smooth. Do you know what? Bored. Because they're doing it technically, but they're not watching the audience. And the reason I want to kind of lecture you about this, because I need you to start thinking like a DJ. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is we will be mixing from the intro of a song to the outro of a song. And typically what happens is all the music is introduced at the beginning and it comes in with a kick and you blend in and all the instruments are introduced, and then in the outro, all the instruments are slowly but surely taken away. The reason I'm telling you this is when you're mixing in an intro to an outro of another song, which we're going to be covering later, usually it's a very stripped back part of the track where there isn't that many instruments even playing. And even when it comes to like the bass, we never have two bass lines playing on top of each other anyway. Again, something I'm going to be covering later in the video. And the point I'm trying to make is when you're mixing a stripped back version of one song into a stripped back version of another song, an intro and outro, it's even less obvious if the keys are clashing. So this is another reason why don't worry about it too much. Having said that, let me show you all about it. So we've got record box here. And what we do is when we put it in, it analyzes the key. Now, at the moment, you can see here, G minor, F, A flat minor. You now know what that means from Ableton, right? With the key, whether it's a major scale, a minor scale, all this kind of stuff. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know anything about it. If your record box is showing letters like this, we want to change that instantly. You can't see it, but I've come up to record box here and I've hit preferences. In preferences, you want to go to view and you go all the way to the bottom where it says key display format. And we're going to change that from classic to alphanumeric. Once you click this, you'll notice all of a sudden it shows these strange things. 6A, 7B, 1A. What does this mean? What it means is some very clever person in the past has made it very easy for DJs like me and you. We don't need to know about A minor, F sharp, all this stuff. Don't need to know about it. So let me now go and explain to you about the Camelot wheel. So let me just go and open this up. And we come to the Camelot wheel here. So what you want to search for is the Camelot wheel. It will open up this image here. And I'm going to explain to you everything you need to know about music theory as a DJ. This will show you all the scales, E major, B minor, blah, 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 with the number next to it. So if we go back to this, we see 6A, galvanized 6A, we can come back and we can see 6A is G minor. But you don't need to know about that. This is what you need to know about. Songs that typically work really well together. A 6A will go perfectly with a 6A. They're the same key. They will sound absolutely perfect on top of each other. So mixing from a 6A to a 6A will work really nicely. Now, the other thing you need to know is you can either go one to the right, one to the left, or up and down. So if you're on 6A here, you can go to 5A and it'll sound great. You can go to 7A and it'll sound great. Or you can go to 6A to 6B. Alternatively, if you're on 6B, you can go to 7B, 5B, or 6A. Now, those are going to sound perfect. You'll always be able to mix them and they're going to sound lovely. That's all you need to know. Now, you can also jump too. You can go from 6A to 8A and it'll probably sound pretty good, 4A. You can't jump from a 6A to a 7B. You can't go down and across. They will clash, okay? So you can only really go up and down here, or you can go 1, 2. If I'm honest, you can usually go 3 and it sounds quite good. That's it. That's all you need to know. So when you're on your DJ decks now, you'll know 6A. Well, we can't go to 7B. We just covered that because you have to go to 6B and then across. But you could go from, and by the way, we can sort these. This is a bit of a strange playlist because there's not many songs in it. But we could go from a 10A to an 11A and it would sound perfect, right? That's it. That's all you need to know about mix and key. And that is like, this is when you'd use it. If you're doing a DJ set for YouTube and you want it to sound like butter, perfect, like everything just flowing perfectly, you would probably worry about more like mix and key. If you just want it to sound like a perfect DJ set. But if you're playing out live, I very rarely, if ever, worry about the BPM at all. In fact, let's take a moment to talk about how I would actually prepare my set lists. So let's say what I would do is I would go and collect all of my music that I'm like, these are all my favorite tracks at the moment, and I throw them into a playlist like this, okay? Now, if you want to know how I actually do it, I have one playlist that is just my ongoing main DJ set, right? It's just, these are the songs I like to play, and they're already kind of ordered, if I just come here, in an order that I feel flows quite well. But I've got lazy as a DJ now, so whenever I do another DJ set, I just create a new one and throw my new tracks in there. And I find myself most of the time, I know that this is the main one and it's got my favorite tracks at the top, and I'll often jump into my new playlist, which has got a couple of my extra songs, and it's all a little bit not organized now. I just go in kind of going, I'm watching the audience, I'm playing songs I know I like, if I'm honest. However, if you are a bit nervous about your first DJ set and you do actually want to plan it out, go ahead and do that. So what you would do, and the way I do it, is I literally look at the playlist and I think, what are my favorite songs at the moment? What am I the most excited about playing? Whenever I have friends of mine who say, Phil, I'm playing this club for the first time, what's your advice? You know, should I take them on a journey? I'm like, honestly, these days, no. You've got your hour slot. You want the audience to love you as a DJ. This is a bit of a difficult one. And again, I'm rambling a bit, but there was always this thing, which is, if you're a warm-up DJ for the main act, and like say you're, warming up for deadmau5, and deadmau5 is going to be coming in and playing tracks around 128, it's kind of ethically bad, or not ethically bad, but it's bad practice to go in and play music that's extremely hype when deadmau5 is going to come in and play 128. You're not going to do a huge drum and bass set. Again, he's not going to book a drum and bass artist to warm up for him, so it doesn't really work. But a couple of things you wouldn't do. Play extremely hype music that's going to have everyone jumping about and screaming, because when deadmau5 now comes in, he's got to bring everyone back down before he brings them back up again. So you shouldn't really do that as a warm-up act. And the other thing you shouldn't do as a warm-up act is play a deadmau5 track if you're warming up for deadmau5. But I have to say, in my world of playing, say, Ministry of Sound, I'm being brought in for an hour. There's another DJ playing after me, and in a lot of clubs these days, this is kind of how it works. You get your hour slot. And I think if we were all completely honest, we're not really too concerned about the DJ that's being played after us. We just want to come in and get everyone screaming and jumping about, especially like past 12 anyway. It was just hype and everyone's going crazy. So my advice to DJs is go and play your favorite songs. Hit them with the best, hit them with your second best, hit them with your third best, and just order your music in a way that you think is the best, right? Now, remember what I said a second ago. These days, I'm watching people. I'm watching them and thinking what track's going to go well. But if you're nervous and you want to have a think about it beforehand, the advice is play the best song first and move down through. So the way I would have done it is I go, right, this is my favorite song. This is my second favorite. This one. Oh, actually, do you know what would work well after that one? This one. Drag it up and put it there, right? That's literally what I'm doing. I'm not looking at BPM. I'm playing tech house music these days anyway, so I know everything's going to be in the same kind of BPM range. Another interesting fact for you is a lot of DJs will stick to a BPM. It's a really clever thing to do this. We haven't come on to beatmatching and all this stuff yet, but just kind of dispensing information for you here. These days, I actually play my music around 130 to 133. And usually when I come in, I just pick the number. I just go, I feel like it sounds crazy, I know, and maybe a lot of DJs will disagree with this, but I often just go, right, my set's 130. And all of these numbers here, 128, 128, 135, 133, doesn't matter to me. They're being played at 130, right? I mean, unless it was extreme, like one of them's 160. But as I said, because I'm now at a position where I go and play tech house music, it's all around the 128 to 133 mark anyway. And I lock it to the same thing. Why do I do this? It takes another bit of thought out of the DJing for me, if I'm honest. I just know, loading the song, 130. Loading the song, 130, and I change the BPM. We're going to be going over this later in the video. It just removes the thought. So I don't even worry about BPM. I just play them in the order that I think is best. I don't even worry about key. There, I said it. So there you go. You now know how to do it if you want to do it. And you know my advice on it too. Okay, let's actually talk about the DJ decks then. So here we have the CDJ 3000 and the CDJ 3000X, which at the time of making this video is the most up-to-date DJ deck you can get and the most kind of like high-end. I've also got the Pioneer DJM V10. This is quite rare. I mean, it's not rare, it's just rare to see it in a club. You're usually going to see the Nexus 2 or the A9. I'm going to bring that out later on, and I'm going to teach you about that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the basics of loading a song in, then I'm going to teach you about the external features of the deck, and then I might go back into the screen to teach you some more additional stuff. So when you first plug in your USB, you're going to see a screen that looks similar to this. Now with both of these decks, they're touchscreen, but this button here, also this knob, will affect what's happening on the screen. So this, you can scroll up and down, and you can click in. So let's say you started off here. Whatever is blue is what you're currently on. So we're on USB. Can't scroll up and down because there's only one USB plugged in. So you can either touch it, which takes it through to the next option, or you can scroll, and we're going to go to local library, which is this USB here, and you click in, which then takes you to a screen where you'll see artists, albums, tracks, blah, 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 blah. Well, the reality is we're going to go scroll down here to playlists, because we've just made playlists and we want to see all of our playlists. Click it in, which takes you there. The blue comes along to here. Scroll to whatever playlist you want with this button, or again, tap it. Once you tap it, it takes you into the actual playlist, and then you can just, again, scroll up and down. And when you found a song you like, you tap in and it loads the song. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there for now. We're going to come back to the screen later on, but I now want to talk about the rest of the features here. So I'm going to run through everything. First things first, the play and pause button. So you play, pause, same button. Most basic thing on the DJ decks, but it's important you know about it. The next thing is the cue button. This button here is an interesting one. As a DJ, you don't always want to start right at the beginning of the track. You might say, do you know what? I actually want to go forward 8 bars and start here instead. At that point, you can either kind of just balance it there and leave it and wait, or you hit a cue button, which now sets a white cue point. What happens now is if I tap this, I'll hold it, and you'll be able to hear. But the best thing about this button is when you take your finger off, it snaps back to where the cue point was set. This is really important because as a DJ, sometimes you know that's the bit that you're going to be bringing in, and you like to just tap along with this track before you bring it in. Now, once you've got it and you're like, right, that's it, you can hold it down and it'll continue to play. And so what you tend to do as a DJ is you tap along, cue it in, and I'm going to be covering beat matching and stuff in a bit anyway. And then when you've got your cue button, you hit the play with your thumb and it continues playing. Alternatively, you tap along with the cue button, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you just hit play. 1, 2, 3, 4, and play. Which is another thing DJs do. So that's the cue button. The next thing we're going to be talking about, and just going from the basics down, is the jog wheel. So the jog wheel actually has several functionalities, but essentially it's used for kind of scrolling through a track. So first things first, if the track is playing and you put your hand on top of the wheel, it will stop the track from playing. Now, one thing to note, anybody who's come from DJs, you'll notice it's very sensitive. The second you touch it, it stops. With the CDJs, it's different. You actually have to apply pressure. Like that, which is a weird thing when you come from DJs to CDJs. Once you stop it, that's it. You can scroll back and forward and it does like a hard rewind or fast forward, which is where scratching comes in. The main thing you're going to be using this jog wheel for is jogging it forward or back. When the track is stopped, if I touch the outside of this wheel, it will have the exact same effect as me touching the top and scrolling. However, when the track is actually playing, now if I only touch the outside of the jog wheel, it'll do an interesting thing. It doesn't stop the track, and as I nudge it forward and back, what it does is it just slightly increases the BPM for that moment, or just nudges the track forward and back. So if it's playing, you hear the track speed up there? The purpose of this is we're going to be covering beat matching later on, but if you've got two tracks playing at once and they're slightly off and they're going dugum, 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 you want to nudge the track forward and back to get it back in line. That's the primary thing you'd use this for. Another interesting tip about the jog wheel is if you want to scroll through the track really quickly using the jog wheel, you can actually hit this search button. If you hit the search button, it will scroll through this, kind of scrub through the track quickly, like that. But if you hold the search button like this and then use the jog wheel, you can really quickly zip through the track. Obviously, you wouldn't do that while it's playing live. You do that while you're queuing in the track, but that's another functionality of the search wheel, the jog wheel. So that's it. That's primarily what you're going to be using the jog wheel for. Now we'll talk about this. Search we just covered. You hold your finger down, it'll scrub through the track really quickly. And actually, I'm just going to talk about this as well. On the screen, you will see a waveform here. Another thing you can do is you can scrub through the track using your finger on this waveform. So, and I need to talk about this as well. There's a couple of different lines you will see on the screen here. The first one is it will turn white if the track is playing. You see the track's white here. Now, if I put my finger on it, I can't scrub through the track. But when I hit pause, it turns red. Now it's red, I can put my finger anywhere on this waveform and scrub through it, like this. When I take my finger off, it will stop in the place I took my finger off. So it's another really cool thing. If you've loaded in a track and you just need to get to the end of the track, play, pause, let it turn red, right to the end of the track, take your finger off, and you're at that place. While we're here, I'll actually just briefly talk about some other stuff as well. If the track is playing and the line is white, and now you put your finger on there, it will show you beats and bars from the point you have your finger on it. So if I put my finger on this now, and I go to this first drop here, I put my finger there, and it'll show me 16 bars, 32 bars. So that's another interesting feature. I'm kind of jumping ahead here because we haven't covered beats and bars yet, so don't worry, I'm going to be covering that. And another feature of it is, do you know what? I'm going to leave it to later on. I'm going to explain it as I go through. Next thing, track search. This is a really, it's a feature that actually very rarely I use. You just jump to the next song. Now that works if you've literally got your playlist planned out exactly, but it still doesn't even quite work because you got your playlist planned out exactly where you know track 1, track 2, track 3. Well, when you come, you're going to go forward 1, 2 because you've just played the track 1, 2, 3. No DJ does it. All DJs do the same thing. Hit browse, go and find the song you want, hit enter. You very rarely will use track search here. This next feature here is an interesting one that you wouldn't necessarily see on beginner DJ decks. There's reverse, so it does exactly what you think. The song's playing like this, and then you hit reverse, and the track starts playing backwards. God knows when you'd use that. Honestly, I have no idea why anybody would ever want it. It's crazy that it's even there. The amount of functionality these DJX decks don't have, yet you can play a song backwards if you want to. Forward, it's just regular. That's what it will be most of the time. Now, slip reverse is an interesting one. So slip, there's also a button up here called slip. And I was about to talk about this with this waveform. Slip is an interesting thing. What it basically says is, if the track is playing and then you activate slip, you can do anything you want to that track, but the track will remain playing in the background. So if I put slip on while it was playing, and then I put my hand on the DJ deck and stopped it, or hit pause, or did whatever I want, the track is continuing to play. And when I take my hand off the DJ decks, instead of it playing from the point that I paused it, it will jump to where the line should be, or where the track should be playing. Now, I'll show you this as well, because I'll play it, I'll hit slip, and I'll put my hand on, and you'll see a yellow line continuing to move to show me where the track would be. So hit play, hit slip, like this, put my hand on the deck like this. The yellow line shows me that I've stopped it, so I got it wrong. The yellow line stops, and the white line continues to show me where the track will be. And when I take my hand off, the yellow line will disappear, and the track will snap back to where the track should be playing. Like that. And then you've got to take slip mode back off, because it'll really mess things up. When would you use slip mode? Well, maybe if you wanted to scratch directly on top of the track that's actually playing, you could do a scratch, and then when you let go, it jumps back to that point. I don't know many DJs who would actually do that, if I'm honest. Another interesting thing about slip mode, which is another thing you could potentially do, is when you put it in slip mode, you can then create loops in a track. And again, I'm kind of going to a more advanced thing here, but so let me get a different track that isn't going to get this taken down. Come to this one here. Let it all work out. 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 Not the best example, but you can see that's how you would potentially use the slip mode. You can put a loop on, you can tighten the loop, and you can watch that line and see when it gets to the drop, so you know when to release the loop to go into the drop. So that's an example of when you would use slip. And now you can obviously get an idea about what slip reverse does. You play a track, and then at any point you can just put it into reverse, and as it plays backwards, it's also playing forwards, a bit like Inception. And then when you take your finger off the reverse, it snaps back to where it should be. You would use this potentially if you were playing a wedding or something, and there was a big swear word coming up in a song, and you were like, oh, I don't want that swear word to be played. You'd maybe quickly hit the reverse button. I don't know. I've never used it. Anyway, so that's the next thing. After that, we've got beat jump. Now, we're going to be talking about beats, bars, and phrases later in the track, but all you really need to know is, with dance music in particular, everything's kind of rigid. Lots of things happen at certain time frames, like every 8 bars, every 16 bars, something new happens. These are called phrases. I'm going to talk about them more later on. And beat jump allows you to jump between different beat ranges. We'll talk about it later on, but that's what it'll do. You can see it kind of jumping between different parts of the track here. I'll talk about beats, bars, and phrases later, and we'll come back to this. These next two, beat loop. So essentially you hit it and it'll create a 4 beat loop, or an 8 beat loop. We haven't covered it yet, but there's 4 beats to a bar. Oh, I think we did cover it earlier on. And there's 8 beats in 2 bars, right? So that'd be a 1 bar loop or a 2 bar loop. Now, the other interesting thing is, once you've set that loop, you can hit 4 to half the speed of that loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, you can go as far as you want, or double the speed of it. Again, a bit like that slip mode function, you could do it using these if you wanted to. In fact, you could do exactly that. You can put in slip mode, and where it says here, these different numbers, you could come and use these if you wanted to, or... Okay, so that's that. Next thing, in and out. This is where quantize is critical. So if we come right to the song here, I can hit an in and out without quantize on, and it'll create an awful sounding loop. However, once I've got the quantize button on, now it will lock it to the grid, and it will continue to loop perfectly in sync with the BPM, right? Because if you think about it, that's what the whole point of this is. Grids, BPM, everything when it's locked in will stay perfect, digital. It's great. So, by the way, that is exit loop. So now if I do another, you don't even have to look at it. Even if I purposely did it off, it would sync it. Let's try that. Anyway, so there you go. That's what that does. Now, the other interesting thing about these buttons is we can now purposely nudge it off the grid if we wanted to do this James Hype thing where we made it really like really tight. The way you would do this is if you hit the out button and then move the jog wheel in. Oh, I think you've got to have it playing. So I'll just explain it first and I'll show you. While it's playing, you can hit the out button and touching the top of the DJ deck. Again, this is one of the other few times you can touch the top of the DJ deck, but this is going to be destructive to the track anyway. And you move it in, it will nudge the end point in or out, depending on which way you move the jog wheel. In fact, let me just show you with the music down. So it's doing that, hit the out button, and now I can extend that loop or shorten that loop. And same thing with the intro. So if I wanted to do that, the in loop, I can shorten it in here. I can hit the out loop and shorten it in. And you can pick a very specific part of the song to hone in on to get that sound. Let me show you. So let's take it off and press play. Which is how James Hype gets those huge sounds. Like, obviously that didn't sound great because I was just doing it on one kick drum. You can imagine in a song, you could take a vocal and just like this. So that's how that's done. So we've done slip, we've done that. USBs up here, you hit stop in order to kind of safely remove your USB up there. Let's jump over to this section here. This is your tempo slider. As you move it up and down, the BPM on the screen, as you can see, gets faster or slower. Interesting thing about the CDJ 3000X, they removed all the little lines. There's lines on all the other CDJs. And even though those lines never really told you much or did anything, it's weird not having them. The other thing the CDJs don't have, which I've mentioned before, is they don't have like a little click thing in the middle. I'd like to go, boom, and it's in the middle, and I know, but you can't do that. Instead, what they give you is a tempo reset button where if you're ever so slightly off and you click it, it snaps it. The weird thing about this is even if it's all the way up here, you can click it and it snaps it. I've just kind of find it a redundant thing, really. You know, like I always just look at the screen and get it perfect, right? That's what I do every single time. I very rarely will hit that. Master tempo. So this is interesting. In fact, let's cover tempo first and I'll do master tempo afterwards. The tempo, when you move it up and down, it's essentially speeding it up and slowing it down by I think it's a percentage. So for example, when I click this, you'll see this little button here changes to +6 or minus. I think what that is it will speed it up by 6% or down by 6% by moving up or down. Maybe I've got that wrong. Maybe it's actually 6 BPM. I don't know, right? So obviously, if I have it on just ±6 and I move the BPM range up and down, it's not actually going to change the track too much. Oh, let me take that off. However, you can go wider to 16. Now this tempo slider is going to be more extreme, but also more sensitive. 16 is the one I actually have it on the most, because as I said over there in my office with the studio, is I only have use music that's between like 125 to 135 anyway. Then you can go up another one to wide. Now this is the most extreme, where you can put it all the way to basically, well, it is silence, listen. Or you can speed it up and it'll double the speed. This. Now the interesting thing, so that's what that does. I always have it on 16 though, but the fascinating thing is there's a thing called master tempo here. Now what's great about this is, you know, before we talked about the key of a track. What this button does is as you speed the song up or slow the song down, it keeps it in the same key. This really impresses me, by the way. And I don't know why, because it's probably very basic technology. But if you think of a vinyl going around, if you slow it down, it would slow down. It will actually pitch down as you slow it down. Let's listen to what this sounds like. And if you speed it up, it goes more high pitch, like a mouse. Like some sort of Mickey Mouse thing. What this does is when you activate it, it keeps the same key, which is unbelievably clever. Because it means that when it's slowing down, somehow it's pitching it so it stays exactly the same. I don't know how they do it, but it's genius, because it means we as DJs now can go from a track that's 129, no, I'm going to budge that up to 133, same key, perfect, so it'll mix exactly over here. Imagine what a nightmare it is on vinyl when you speed up a song and suddenly it's like a higher pitch and now the keys are clashing and you've got to really be using your ears at that point to go like, right, if I've moved that up, is that actually the same key? I don't even know how they do that. They probably just don't bother with it at all. So anyway, that's what Master Tempo does. Next thing here, we've got jog wheel feel, okay? So this is how aggressive or light this is, how heavy or light this jog wheel is. So if you've got it on light, it'll spin for a while. If you put it on heavy, now this is just preference. I always have it kind of like just a little bit lighter like this. One other interesting note for you, the CDJ 3000 wheel is significantly lighter. So it's hard for me to really show you this, but I'll just do a quick backspin on one and backspin on the other. I don't know whether it's going to come out in the video, but this one, it goes for a while, and on the exact same light setting over here, it stops quicker, significantly quicker. I don't know if it came across in the video, but anyway, it's just an interesting thing for you. So it's a bit heavier on the CDJ 3000X, doesn't make any difference to me really. Then we've got over here some features. Key sync, this is a clever one. If you've got a track over here that's in a certain key, and you come over to this track, if it's possible, you can hit key sync and it will lock the track on this deck to the same key as the track over here. Now, you want to be doing this if the keys are close to each other. And the other thing you'll notice as well, which is again kind of technical, but sometimes it won't match it to the exact key, but it'll match it to a key that would be good enough. Again, I just don't find myself using this because when you change the key of a song, you change the pitch of the song. So you imagine if everyone's used to singing along to a track and they know the person's voice and you change the key, that person's voice is now going to sound really high or really low. So you only would ever nudge this by maybe 1 or 2. You know, like I said, if one was 7A and the next one was 6A and you could sync them, I just don't find myself using it very much. You don't want to be messing around with pitch. Remember what I said at the beginning? A bad DJ is a DJ that's just made people aware of them. Don't do stuff that's going to affect the song so badly. People are like, what is this DJ doing? That's why I don't really do that much. Now, the next thing, beat sync. We're going to be talking about this in more detail later on because it's a controversial subject. I don't know why it is, but essentially when you hit beat sync, it takes the BPM of this track and syncs the BPM of the track you just hit beat sync on to the other track that's playing. Okay, so if this one's 135, this is 132, I hit it, it syncs to that track over there. Slightly more interesting than that because what the sync also does or means is when the two tracks are synced, I can affect the BPM of one track, the initial track or the master track that I synced it to, and it will change the BPM of that track at the same time, which is quite interesting and can be used for quite interesting transitions. For example, if you had a track over here that was particularly slow and a track over here that was particularly fast, and you wanted to smoothly take people from one BPM to another while beat matching, you could do that. You could sync this track to this track, move the BPM up while this track's on its outro and this track's on its intro. If it's a long enough intro and outro, you can speed it up, speed it up, speed it up, so people naturally feel the speed go from this track up to this track. You could see how that could work. And then master, this essentially says, right, this is the main track now. The DJ decks will automatically do that. If I'm playing a track over here, it will make this the master. If I then come and play a track over here, let's just do this super quickly, and then pick play over here, this is now the master. Now there are some times where you might want to make a deck a master, for example, if you're syncing. Or if, and this is another thing which we're going to cover when it comes to beat matching, but at the top of the screen here, you can see the two tracks, here and here. If you touch it, it will show the waveform of the other track. So this track over here is playing above this track here. Sometimes it's not there, so by hitting master, it will, you see we swapped it. We've basically said, that's the main track now, so show that above this track. Or if I come over here and hit master, this track is shown above this track. I don't know why they don't just have both tracks playing above both tracks, but I guess it's a good thing for you to know which track is playing, which one isn't. So that's master, okay? And we'll cover the waveforms and stuff later on. We've got the jog wheel mode. This is another thing, I don't know why they've added this. It's really odd. But the vinyl mode basically means it acts like vinyl. If I hit the top, it stops, just like a regular vinyl. You touch the top, the whole thing comes to a stop. But there's another thing called CDJ mode. This comes from the very first iteration of a CDJ that, believe it or not, didn't even have a screen. And so the way you would do it is, rather than like literally looking at the BPMs and going, well, there's a beat and there's a hot cue, and I know that that's I know that's a beat, or, you know, a transient. Wow, okay, let me just go right back to the beginning, because that might not be a beat. But if I go back here, I can see that's clearly a kick. I can set a hot cue there, and that's going to be a kick. When the first CDJs didn't have a screen, the way they would do it is they play a very, very tight loop of the sound, so in your ear you can line it up with the transient. But it sounds like a frickin' train wreck. So if you ever have it on that mode and then you stop the track, it sounds like this. Sounds, and it's annoying. It's really annoying, but you can see how it works. You can hit pause, line it up with the transient in your ears, and then set the hot cue. So completely redundant feature now, doesn't need to be used at all, so I have it in vinyl. Vinyl speed adjust. This is interesting. You know, a second ago we were talking about the tempo and it going and the pitch dropping. Vinyl speed basically does that. If I put it really long, it will slow the track down and pitch it down at the same time, which creates that vinyl sound. Or you can make it quicker so it stops instantly. So you can kind of have it in the middle. It's a slightly more musical way to stop it. You can extend it if you want. I don't like it. I usually just have it on instant. So that's that. Next thing here, we've got memory points and cue points. So these are, again, a bit like the cue button, but they kind of have slightly different features, which I'm going to come on to in a bit. But essentially, if you went to a certain part of the track here, and you were like, okay, I want to put a cue point here, you can hit a hot cue. And then I can go right back to the beginning and go like, right, I also want a cue point here, and put another hot cue there. And you can, throughout the track, add as many of those as you want, and then you can jump between different parts of the song. That's hot cues. And then there's memory points, which essentially does the same thing again. You can go to a certain part of the track, let's just say here, put a cue point here, like that, and then you can go and hit memory. And what it does is it sets a memory point. I'm going to be talking about memory points and hot cues later on in the video. So that's that. And then again, if you want, you can jump. Say if we had 2 memory points, I'm going to put one here as well, memory. Then you can jump back and forth between these memory points with these arrows. And then if you want to delete one, you can delete one and then jump to the next one, delete it. And then again, up at the top here, We've got source. I'm just covering the buttons around the top, and then we'll go into some of the functionality in the screen as well. Source will take you back to USB. So let's say, for example, you had 2 USBs in, you can go back and select USBs. Browse will take you to your either the song that's currently playing or back to the last playlist you were in. Tag list up here is if you're DJing live and you're like, oh, that's the next song I want to play, and you're browsing, or you're just browsing through some of your tracks and you're like, actually, that's a really good one there. You can hit tag, and what it does is it drops it into the tag list, essentially. I actually don't really use that very often. I usually only ever, I don't have a high attention span. I'm only ever really thinking 1 or 2 tracks ahead anyway. But that's what the tag list is. And I'm pretty sure if you hit it again, it removes the tag. Playlists just get you instantly to your playlist. Search takes you to a screen where, lo and behold, you can search. So menu, if you just hit it here, it just shows you previous tracks you've loaded. And then shortcuts, if you hit that, will show you a load of shortcuts. And I'm not going to go into this in huge amount of detail, but it's things like, what color do you want your waveforms to be? Do you want your beat jump settings here, your quantize, you want it to go to a beat or to a half beat? So all these like little additional things to do with these DJ decks that you can change, which, I mean, I could just run you through them. So waveform here is essentially, if we go back and you can hit this back button here, you know, I said that there's a waveform at the top. You can tap it and it will change it between like a grid view and a waveform view. It's exactly the same as that. Oh gosh, hold on. Back, edit. Oh, sorry, shortcuts we're on. So that'll change between the two then. Time mode is, you can either have it where what time is it in the track or how much time is left. Auto cue, memory cue, basically says when you load in a track, load the track in and load it to my first memory cue. That's useful. I use that one quite a lot. Hot cue auto load on, which same thing. It will load it to the beginning of your first hot cue. Smart cue, actually don't know what that is. Gate cue, so this is an interesting feature that the CDJ 3000 has. If we go back, usually with CDJs, one of the massive differences with CDJs is the hot cues. When I say the massive difference between CDJs and the DDJ and any entry-level DJ decks is hot cues have gated hot cue. In other words, they function in the same way as the cue button does, which is when you hit it, it plays until you take your finger off and then it snaps back. Whereas with hot cues on the CDJs, you hit it and it continues playing. And it's always been a bit of a source of frustration for anybody who's come from entry-level DJ decks where the hot cues have a gated function. You can't. On the new CDJs, there's a button here which you can access, which is gated hot cue, which means now the hot cue buttons function in the same way as the cue button. If you go back to shortcuts, that's exactly what that means there as well. Is shortcuts working? Yeah, there we go. Beat jump value, brightness of the screen, brightness of the LCD, the jog wheel as well. That's basically it, okay? Back button does exactly what you think. Wherever you were, it takes you back to where you were prior to that point. Tab we've done. So that's basically everything. Inside this as well, you basically get the idea, right? You've got your playlists and you can go back to playlists and select a different playlist if you want here. On the CDJ 3000s, you can change how big the writing is. You can see the preview of the track and you can see it or not. Another interesting feature about this is you can actually put your finger on the waveform, and if you've got your headphones in, you can preview a bit of that track. So if you're ever like just scrolling, listening to tracks, you're like, which track's going to work next? Well, you can hold down this and it will actually play a bit of that song in your ear, so you don't have to load it into the deck, which is quite interesting. Another thing that is quite useful is in the CDJ 3000X, there's now edit mode. So now it's in edit mode, I can say, actually, this is the song I'm going to use less. Instead of using the tag list, for example, I can say, I really like this song. So you tap it, hold it, drag it up, and now it refreshes, it reorders it. The really good thing about it is it actually reorders it on the USB. For the longest time, it was a very frustrating thing because I quite liked having my playlist in an order that I knew I was going to play it. It just kind of gave me peace of mind when I went to DJ Live. And if I was ever like, actually, this song works really well after this song, I'd have to just memorize it, take the USB, go over there, reorder it in the record box, and then bring it back over. Whereas now, actually, I can just go bang, reorder. Unfortunately, that's only a feature on the CDJ 3000X. Why they can't just add that as a feature to the other CDJs, I don't know. Well, I do know, because they want people to go and buy CDJ 3000X. So that's it. That is the CDJ in its totality there. I think I've pretty much covered everything, and all the other functionality is very similar across most of the CDJs. Okay, let's talk about the mixer in the middle. And this is the DJM V10, but in this I'm just covering the basics of the mixer, and at the end of the video I'll go into more advanced features. I'm going to cover this, but I'm going to be covering the mixer more later in the video. So the first things first, what you see, you just see hundreds of knobs on these like premium mixers. The only thing you really need to remember and focus on is two columns, okay, two channels. This channel here, and in the same way with CDJs, once you understand one CDJ, the exact same thing is going on the other CDJ. It's the same thing here. Forget all of these, just know that this one is playing on this channel here. So let's focus on just this one channel here, because once you understand one channel, you'll understand across the board. So in order of importance, first things first, you've got the overall volume of the entire mixer here, right? You can turn it up, you can turn it down. That's the main thing. Now, this channel is feeding into this main mixer here. On this mixer, you've then got a volume for just this one channel. So this would be 100% volume, and this would be 0, right? Now, the next volume knob is at the top where it says trim. It says trim, but really it's just a volume, or if you want to be technical, a gain knob. So when you turn it, sometimes you have it where a certain track is just significantly louder than another track. Again, this is something that I don't tend to worry about these days, because all tech house and house music is kind of mastered to the same volume these days. So I tend to just constantly keep these in the middle. But let's say, for example, I was bringing in an a cappella, and the a cappella is particularly quiet, I could turn the volume up here. So when I go bang and bring it in full volume, it's at the volume I would want it to be. The way I look at this is these here are just performance. Like bang, that's full volume. Bang, we're in at full volume. But just in case one of them, there's a fly in the room now, great, it's exactly what you want when you're filming a YouTube video. Just in case, what you want is to be able to slam it in, but you know that that track is a bit quiet, you can then adjust the volume up here. Now, another little side note for you, which is just a stupidly technical thing that is not going to really matter to most people, but on the DJM Nexus 2, which is the kind of club standard, there's a little button that says clip. Now, what this means is if you've got the trim knob too loud, the music's being clipped. Now, let me just kind of actually explain clipping to you so you can understand it in more detail. I'll explain it by drawing on this bit of paper here. When there is music playing, the waveform looks a little bit like this, right? And it's like doo, doo, doo. When it clips, the way you've got to look at it is a speaker. The way the speakers work is that cone moves back and forth, right? And it pushes sound waves out in line with these forms here, these waveforms. Now, there's only so far the cone can actually move. So like you do it and it's quite quiet and it's like this, but then you can actually see it physically moving when it's loud enough. Now, if you just think of clipping in terms of the cone, it can't move any further than that. So if you keep turning it up, eventually it just can't play these extra peaks. You've just turned it up before, like as loud as the cone can move. Now, obviously we now live in an age where the digital technology kicks in before it starts damaging the speakers. So it digitally clips. It says, right, well, you're making it too loud now, so we're going to cut off that and cut off that. And what that actually introduces is distortion. Now, the reason why this trim knob is interesting is if you have it so loud that the clipping button is flashing at you, then when you move this up and down, this will go from 0 to 100% of a distorted clipped sound, right? So, and you'll see it on the decks later on. So you want to make sure it's not clipping, and you want to make sure the trim is turned down so it's not clipping. The relevance of the DJM V10, it's impossible to actually clip. It's quite technical stuff, but essentially when you DJ in a club, you are there and you're on the mixer, but actually there's a sound tech most of the time, especially in high-end clubs, at the back of the room that's doing his own wizardry. Okay, it's too loud. He has the ability to turn you down, so you can keep cranking the volume, but the tech guy, the sound engineer at the back of the room, can just turn you back down. Now, the issue is when you're on the DJM or the V9 and you turn up the trim too much and it's clipping, the guy at the back of the room can turn the volume down, but once again, he's just turning the volume down on a clipped, distorted sound, and he's sitting there going, you are playing really awful, distorted clip music out and there's nothing I can do about it. Whereas this is why the DJM V10 is really high-end gear. It's impossible to actually clip. So no matter how much I drive this, the tech guy at the back of the room can turn down the volume and it's never distorted. Interesting fact for you. I only found that out the other day as well. It's a funny thing, isn't it, having a hobby? I always think this, like, there's so much to DJing. I mean, I could just talk and talk and talk. And maybe some of you are interested in this stuff, maybe some of you aren't. But the more you get into a hobby, like, things like that fascinate me. So anyway, so that's the trim knob. I'm actually just gonna work from the top down, and this actually is not in the right order because I'm talking about technical things over the simple, easy things. These at the top are basically where the leads are plugged in. You don't need to worry about that if you go into DJ in a club. It's all going to be ready for you anyway. But you know, like, obviously you're changing it around, so you could have this deck over here on this lane if you wanted to, and why the hell you want to do that, I don't know. The next button down, it's kind of complicated on these CJ decks. And I said I was going to cover the basics, and I'm going straight into complicated stuff. But this is a compressor knob here. You don't have that on the Nexus 2. And essentially, what this does is it compresses the sound. So let me explain again. Well, you've got this waveform, and clipping, believe it or not, is a type of compression. What you're doing essentially is saying every time the volume goes above or below, because the waveform's going like this, you can't just bring it in from the top, it kind of squeezes it like this. So you're basically saying these are a threshold. When the music goes above that threshold, turn the music down, right? So when you clip, you just give it a hard, like, it's done. But with compression, it's a little bit gentler and it's less distorting. Now, why would you want to do this compression? Why would you want to turn the volume down of the peaks? Because what it means is you can then turn the volume up of the quieter noises. I've only got one. Oh, here we go. I'll demonstrate it here. So say we had a really quiet waveform that looked like this, and we turned the volume up. Now the waveform looks like this, right? It's just got louder and bigger. So essentially, the quieter bits of the song are louder, and the louder bits of the song are louder. But with compression, we say, but the louder bits of the song turn down. So what we've actually resulted in is the dynamics of the track are quieter and less punchy, but the quieter bits of the track are louder. So when you turn this up, you're turning the volume of the track up and cutting off the peaks, which gives the track more body. Now, you would never ever use this because you're using tracks that have already been compressed. When would you use compression? if you were working with a live vocalist, right? And actually, sometimes they're singing the track really loud, and sometimes they're whispering, and you want the sound to be nice and consistent, you can add a bit of compression in there. So when they sing really loud, it turns it down a little bit. When they sing really quietly, you've already kind of got it turned up. That would be an example. Or you were using a live drum machine or something like that, you'd use it. Otherwise, do not touch it, okay? Hopefully I've explained that well. Then we come on to these EQ knobs. EQ kind of stands for equalizer. And essentially, you've got your high, mid, and low mids and lows. On the Nexus 2, I keep pointing over there because it's there in my room. You've only got 3, high, mids, and lows. This has got an extra 1. I don't particularly like having an extra 1. It's kind of irritating if I'm honest. So you just got to think, the highs of a track are usually like hi-hats. Is anything like, it's usually percussive based. Think of it like this. The highs, you're affecting the percussion, the claps, the those kind of sounds. If you turn it up, you're turning up the percussive sounds, or the white noise, that kind of sound you'll turn up. Or if you turn it down, you're turning down the percussion. With the mids in the song are where the vocals lie, or where the synths lie, or the melody. It's usually the hook of a track. This is what I explain to people in my EDM coaching program, is the hook is the thing that brings people back to the track. What's the bit that when you've heard a track and you need to sing that track back to someone, oh, you know that song by James Hype that goes, you know, whatever you sing, that's the hook. That's the bit you're turning up and down, the melody, the vocal. And then you've got the lows, which is the kick and the bass. Those kind of low sounds. Now that's the most relevant part of a track if you're a house DJ or any kind of electronic music DJ, because the bass is the thing that's moving the room, right? Again, when you're making dance music, the thing you focus on the most is the kick and bass, because that's the thing that's actually moving the room. Then the melody is the thing that keeps people coming back, and the percussion is like the groove. If you just got a kick going do, 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 there's no groove. But add a hi-hat, now you've got a bit of groove. And of course, other elements in a song can bring groove as well, but that's the fundamental way to think of it. So now you can control all of these. Like, for example, if you were bringing in if a track was playing and there were 2 vocals sitting on top of each other, well, now we might take away the vocal of the one track and let this vocal breathe, so you don't have 2 vocals sitting on top of each other. Or if you've got 2 different hi-hats, you know, tick, 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 and they're kind of clashing, well, maybe you might want to take it away a little bit. So this is what this is, and we're going to be covering mixing frequencies later on. Next thing is you have a filter knob. So filter is a very classic DJ sound. It's like that kind of sound. Let me play it so you can actually hear it. So let me go back to playlists and go to this track here. I'll take you to the... Filters it down, or I'll take you to the... filters it up. That's what it does, right? And it's great because if you ever want to not do a fancy blend where you're doing frequencies and you just want to filter a song out quickly, that's when you would use that. These DJ decks also have something called send, which is essentially all you need to know how much of the effect you're adding in. And then I'm going to briefly run through some other main stuff in the track, these decks as well, because I'm going to go through it in a bit more detail later on. But you've got your headphone volume, more headphones, so just because these are high end, you've actually got 2 headphone slots for if you're doing a back-to-back with someone. Both DJs could be listening at the same time. So you've got headphone B, headphone A over here. And you've got certain effects over here. I'm going to go through it in the video later on. More effects here. You've got microphone volume over here. This area here is all to do with more effects you could add over it, okay? So you've got things like delay, echo. This knob here is how much of the effect you're adding in. This button is to activate or deactivate the effects. If it's flashing, it's on. Oh, let me just double check that. Yeah, if it's flashing, it's on. If it's a solid color, it's off. This is where you can select it. This button here is called time. It's interesting. You know about the grid now. When you add an effect, the delay and a lot of the effects actually go into the BPM. So if you add a delay, it's going to be perfectly to the grid. But if you get the time and you change it, you can now make it so the delay isn't going to the grid, which can be used to interesting effect. We'll talk about this later on. With these decks, you can say, I only want the effects to affect just the highs, or just the mids, or all of them, or take away the lows. For example, when you add reverb, you often don't want it reverbing is reverbing a word? I don't know. You often don't want it reverbing the low end of the track because it can make it sound really muddy. So you take that off if you were going to add something like reverb. Now, the other interesting thing about these decks is if you have it on a certain setting and then you move away from that setting and then move back, it remembers that you don't like your lows on reverb and it removes it. Tap is the same thing as time. You can tap what you want your effects to the BPM you want it to go to, and you can change the BPM here. These decks are interesting. They've got another isolator. It's called isolator, but it's essentially another EQ. And you might say, why do you need another EQ over here? Well, the idea is if you're DJing here and you have a live vocalist over there, you've got a DJ track playing here, you've got another track playing here, and you've got multiple things playing at once. And you're like, I really want to cut the bass from all of these. Rather than having to cut the bass of all of them at the same time, you can just turn isolator on and cut the bass across the board and bring it back. Again, it's high-end stuff. Are you going to use it? Maybe. So that is the mixer, and that's just the basics of it, but I am going to go over this in even more detail later in the video. Okay, let's talk about hot cues versus memory points. So essentially, whenever you set a hot cue or you set a memory point like this, you can see it on the track. It's saved on that track then, so when you come back, you can see all of your saved hot cues and memory points. You can also do this in Rekordbox if you want, which, by the way, I didn't teach you on there because I actually find myself doing it more on the actual decks. So let's talk about why you'd use both. I find myself using memory points more than hot cues the longer I DJ. And essentially all it is a little reminder to me, this is a good place to bring this track in. This is a good place to blend out from this track. So if I ever go DJing, or if I want to kind of prepare my tracks, I usually just set 2 memory points. So I will say, and this is how I do it, by the way, and we haven't covered phrasing yet, but when the track actually breaks down here, there's a point where the track actually breaks down. Let me slow these down. When it goes from the intro drums to the breakdown, I will usually come to this exact point where it goes into the breakdown, and I go back 16 bars. I go back 16 bars because that's the length I have trained myself to do every transition. So once I go to this point, I'll go back 32 bars, 32 beats, sorry, and I know it's 32 here because I've set it. Remember, we covered this before. You can go into the edit section here. Oh, sorry, not edit. You can go into shortcut section here, and you can say you want the beat jump value to be 32 beats. Now, I don't know why they don't have the option to have this in bars instead, but 32 beats, 4 beats in a bar, 32 beats is 8 bars. I don't know that well because I'm good at math. I've just memorized it. So I will go back from this point where it goes into the breakdown, 1, which is 8 bars, 2, which is 16 bars. And now I know that that point there is 16 bars before the breakdown. And so I will typically hit a cue point, hold down memory, and create a memory point. Now I've obviously got 2 memory points here. I've also got a little letter A because of this. If you ever want to delete one of your hot cues, hold down this delete button, click A, and it disappears. Now you can see we've got 2 memory points. I would hate that because I'm used, and this is the main thing, cue points, memory points is all kind of personal preference. I'm going to teach you how I use it and how the pros tend to use it, but it's down to you. So it would wind me up if I was DJing live and I saw 2 red points at the beginning of the track. I'd be like, well, which freaking one is it, Phil? So I always then would go, jump to the next memory point and delete. So now when I'm looking at this track, I go, that is the point I would typically bring it in. And I've also got it set from the settings section, so when I load a track, it loads ready with the point at the first memory point. And same thing at the end of the track. Let's say you could go right to the end of the track here, like this, and say that's where the track ends. Go back 1, 2, and say this moment here, cue point, memory point, is the exact moment that's going to give me 16 bars at the end of the track. So that would be it. Honestly, that's how I'd use my memory points. That's the point you typically bring it in, Phil. That's the point you typically get rid of it. And the reason why I like memory points is you don't have to trigger anything to get between them. So for example, if I did go back another 16 bars and hit a hot cue now, and I'm now at a different point of the track, in order to get to that hot cue, I've got to actually tap the button, which plays a little bit of the song. And as we know about the CDJs, other than the new CDJ 3000X, it just instantly plays the song. So if I want to jump to a point of the track, I've got to go through this frustrating process of hitting A, having it land at that point, hit the pause button, and then rewind it, stop it there, and hit Q, just so I've got that cue point ready to go. You see why that's frustrating? Whereas with the memory point, I don't have to do that. Let's say, for example, I'm in the middle of the track here, and it's playing, and I want to now instantly snap to this memory point here. It's playing. Let's just get this playing like this, and then I go, bang. And there we are. Awesome. It's awesome. Or actually, well, you wouldn't ever really want to do this, but I want to jump to that final memory point. Bang, it's done. Don't have to trigger anything. Don't have to faff about with reversing stuff and setting new trigger points. It's there. Hit it there. Bang, you're done. See how that's good? So that's why I use memory points more than hot cues. Now, let's talk about hot cues. Hot cues are more of a performance-based thing, on the basis that as soon as you hit it, it plays. Especially now there is the ability to put gate cues on. You could chop up a melody if you wanted to, which you see me do on my Instagram quite a lot, and play back a melody in a different order. I don't have it loaded here to show you, and I don't really want to go into the nuts and bolts, but just imagine if you had a melody that went doot, 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 you could go and set hot cue on each one and play it back in a different order. Doot, 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 doot. You could put on a performance with it if you wanted to. It's also quite good, for example, if you wanted to swap a drop. So it's building to one drop, and then you're going to swap it out with a different drop. It's not necessarily the way you should do it, but the way you can do it is you could have that drop right at this point here, and you could have your hot cue there, and right when the drop hits, as long as it's all quantized, you can just hit the drop on this track and remove the track that's currently playing. Oh, I've just put the gate cue on, right, but take it off. You can just instantly trigger it in, right? So that's it. Now, I have got another section later on where I'm going to talk to you about how to set hot cues like a pro, but those are essentially the differences between hot cues and memory points, and hopefully I've also explained to you why my go-to these days, especially in a club, is memory points over hot cues. Okay, now we're going to start talking about the real fundamental stuff you need to know when it comes to DJing, which is beats, bars, and phrases. I can skim through this quite quickly because I think I've kind of covered this in different parts of the video. But a beat is every time the kick drum hits. That's a kick, right? Every time that hits, it's a beat. There's 4 beats to a bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. Now, I've also just touched on something which is also quite fundamental. How do DJs count? You always want to be aware of beats. The better you get at DJing, the less you have to do this. But if you are going to count bars, the way you do it is you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. Now, the fascinating thing about this is every 8 or 16 bars, something new will happen in a track. And if you've never experienced this before, this is genuinely going to blow your mind. Go and pick up or press play on any dance track you know and count up to 8 bars or 16 bars, and something brand new will happen. And this is called phrasing. I'm actually going to take a moment to do this with you now, right? So we're going to listen to this and we're going to count along. And I'm just going to count along and notice after 8 bars, something will change. A new instrument will be brought in. Singing might happen. Maybe instruments will be taken away. So we'll count to 8. At the end of 8, we'll count to 8 again. And I'll kind of go quiet in those moments so you can see when it happens. And you'll notice a new thing happens. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4. How freaking awesome is that? Now, this is relevant because these are phrases. And in every dance song, you have certain fundamental phrases. And actually, give me a second. I'm going to get some paper and I'm going to draw them out for you. So these are the fundamental phrases of every single track that you just need to memorize and you probably will already recognize. The first is intro. The second phrase is breakdown. This is the phase where the drum gets taken away and it kind of goes all quiet and maybe the singing comes in. Then you've got the build. That's usually where the snares come in. Like that's the build, okay? Build. Don't worry about my handwriting. Next one is the drop. The drop is actually a phrase. What usually happens in the build-up is the bass gets taken away, there's lots of repetition used, there's rising noises. By the way, it's really interesting that you should know about that. In the build of every track, when I'm teaching my students how to make a really epic build in the track, there's 3 things to do. First things first, the thing that causes a track to sound heavy is the bass, the sub bass. It's the lows of the track, the boom, boom, boom. Think of it like this. When you're standing outside a nightclub, you can often feel the boom, 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 boom coming through the walls. It's that low energy. That's the thing that brings the energy. And because that's what's going to happen in the drop, in order to make the drop sound bigger, you don't just keep adding more and more sub until it's just a big wall of noise. What you do is you take the sub away and starve your audience of the sub. And so when it gets brought back, it feels bigger. So one thing that all music producers do is they'll get rid of all the bass in the build of the track, thin it right out. The second thing you can do is add repetition, loops. These repetitive noises. And then the third thing is pitching. We all hear, if you add just those 3 things to a build, it's going to sound epic. Now, why is that relevant to us as DJs? Because we can do things to amplify this. You often find DJs, when the build's coming, remove the lows, remove the lows, remove the lows like this, or put on a loop. You can add loops, add tension, and then rising noises. You can actually get like white noise. This kind of pitching up noise. Anyway, went off on one then. Intro, breakdown, build, drop. Now, believe it or not, that's kind of it. The second half of the song is just the same thing. Second breakdown, second build, second drop, and then outro drums. That's what every single dance song will look like. Maybe there might be a third drop. Rarely though. It's gonna look like this. And each of these are phrases, okay? Really, really critical stuff this. It's really important you take a moment to actually not just listen to your favorite tracks, but begin to recognize when phrases are happening. They typically happen every 16 bars. But sometimes if you're listening to long progressive house, it might be 32 bars, but typically it's this. Now the relevance of this is that your intro and outro are 16 bars. And I don't know if you remember me saying earlier on in the video, but I have trained myself, as you should too, to do all your mixes over 16 bars, okay? It's really relevant. And also there's usually 2 parts to an intro and outro, which, as you guessed it, is 8 bars and then 8 bars, where the first 8 bars are really basic drum beat, second 8 bars usually the bass line or something comes in. And then the interesting thing is with the outro, it's just the intro in reverse. So the bass starts to get taken away and then it ends up with just a really basic beat in the background. So this is beats, bars and phrases. Now, while we're on this subject, I want to take a moment to remind you about this beat jump here. So if we go right to the beginning of the track, which I can do easily now with my memory point, bang. This is 32 beats, which is 8 bars. And if I jump forward 1, it takes you halfway through the build. Go forward again, you're at the beginning of the breakdown. Go forward 1, 2, and that takes you, okay, this track has actually got a slightly different structure. I don't think it's much of a, it's just a slightly different track. It's actually one of mine. But then you go forward again, bang, you're at the drop. Drop, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're at the end of the drop. Another breakdown, another build, another drop, and you can see everything is fitting in perfectly. So it's really relevant, this, because you now know that this will get you to different parts of the song quickly. Another thing which I want to talk about, at the beginning of the video I talk about different lines that you can see on this waveform here. The one is white if it's currently playing, red if it's currently not playing, you can scroll around. But if it's playing and then you put your finger on the waveform, you can now see where you are in relation to the track. So if I was to go to this track here and be like, right, there's the drop. It's got to be playing for me to do this. And I go, there's the drop. And I can see it because when you put your finger on it, it actually stops the waveform and shows you exactly where the line is. And I know that's the first beat of the drop there. And I can see, look, that's 16 bars before. There's 32 bars before. Or if I'm coming up to the end of a song, I can be like, right, how long have I got to the end of this song? Okay, there's 16 bars. Okay, so it's 32 bars from here to the end. It's really useful for me to know this. Also, another little sub note for you. If you say to yourself, right, okay, this point here, that's the second, that's like where the outro drums are going to begin. And you take your finger off, and now it's got a point that it will leave that green marker on the waveform. So you know that's the point I need to start blending out. So even if you haven't set your memory points, you can leave a little green marker. And even another cool thing is there's a little green marker up here, which is counting down to that moment in bars. 38, 3, 2, 1. 37, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's counting down to that point. So you know exactly how many bars you've got until you have to start counting out. So that's beats, bars and phrases, and eventually you'll know beats, bars and phrases. You won't even have to think about it. In fact, again, another thing I say to a lot of my students is when you're making a dance track, it should be obvious within a second what part of the track you're in. So for example, I went back to here and I hit play. It's going to be the intro or outro. Go to this point here. You know instantly, it's the breakdown. Everything's been stripped back, vocals come in, emotional chords. Okay, this doesn't have a big build, this track, but, you know, let's have a listen to when the drop is. And I want you to think when I play this now, at what point does the phrase of the drop start? Summer night. The second the kick came in, beginning of a phrase. The second the kick disappears, end of a phrase. This isn't a great track to actually demonstrate it. Let me go and get a different track. So let's go to this one here. So kick drum disappears, end of a phrase. There it is. Right? So there you go. Beats, bars, and phrases. So now let's move on to setting hot cues like a pro. Okay, let me teach you how to set your hot cues like a pro. So what the amateurs tend to do is they just set their hot cues in random places on every single song, and there's no real rhyme or reason to any of them. And so I can tell you in a nutshell, the best way to set your hot cues is to have a system and a structure where it's the same on every single track. Therefore, when you load it in and you glance at your hot cues, you can instantly see the same thing on every track, and there's a level of consistency. So the first thing, I've got this here. This is the breakdown of the song, which we covered. The phrases: intro, breakdown, build, drop, second breakdown, second build, second drop, and outro drums. We now want to focus on the most common place you are likely to mix a track. And the most common place is you're going to take the 16 bars of the intro and you're going to line it up with the 16 bars of an outro. So in other words, this track is coming to an end. You've got your 16 bar outro here. At the beginning of your outro drums, you're going to cue in the beginning of your intro drums on your other track. So now they are both playing at the same time over 16 bars. I feel like a math teacher. And the beauty is, over this time period, you're going to have mixed from one song into another song. Okay? We're going to be doing beat matching in a second, but you just need to understand this concept. So that is going to be the most likely thing. So I will always, and this is how I do it, and you can have your own system, but this is what I recommend. First things first, turn the volume all the way down. I will first find out the 16 bar intro into the track. Now this is important because sometimes it's a longer intro. So the way you've always got to do it is you go 1, 2, and I can see we now know my 2 is 16 bars, and it lands perfectly at the breakdown here. Okay, 1, 2. There it is. So I will set my first cue point A here. I will then set my second halfway through my intro. So as we know, the intro is broken down into 2 sections typically, and each are 8 bars. Okay, 8 bars, 16, halfway through the intro. I will set my second cue point, B. Why do I do this? Just in case something happens at the last minute, I'm like, oh, I missed my cue point. Don't panic. We'll just blend over the space of 8 bars, and it'll sound a little bit sloppier and not as smooth, but I've just got it covered. Now I've got my A and B cue points set here. I will come to my last 2 cue points, because this is the thing with cue points. You've only got 8 of them. The last 2 cue points, lo and behold, are going to be the last 16 of the outro. Now we're going to come along, blah, 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 blah. Now that's the beginning of my drop. Let's say we're going to want to have at least 16 bars of a drop. I know past this point, any point here, I can start to blend into the next track. So I might then say, and I know from this point, by either putting my finger on it. Oh, sorry, I've gone back. Let me just quickly go back here with that. So we go, here's the drop here. We go 1, 2, and I might blend out at this point. So I'm going to do the same thing. G and H. G will go at the beginning of the outro drums, jump forward again, and then H will go halfway out. So I've now got my intro and outro mapped out, and I know in my head that this is going to be the beginning of the intro, this is going to be the beginning of the outro, that's going to be halfway through the intro, and that's going to be halfway through the outro. They're the most important ones, and they're just marked out clearly, and I understand them. And if you want, you can even color code these. I don't bother going that far. Now I start looking at the second most likely transition I might do, which again, I rarely do. The second one is a drop swap. So what's happened is the intro's played, the breakdown's played, and now we're building to the first drop, okay? Now, if you want to do a drop swap truly, maybe I've taught this video way in the wrong order here, but the way you would do it is once you've lined up the speeds of both tracks, as track A hits the first beginning of the phrase of the build, so just as it goes and it starts to build, on track B, so this is track A, on track B, I will have a cue point set to hit play at the beginning of that build. In other words, 8 or 16 bars before the drop. And so as it enters the build here, I then hit play on the build here. You've now got 2 tracks that are both building to the drop at the same time. This track is building to the drop and track B is building to the drop here. And I will be blending from one track to another here. And at the last minute, I drop the track A that's building to the drop. I drop the volume of that and let the drop of track B play. That would be a drop swap. I'll cover that in more detail later in the video, okay? That would be the second most common thing I would do. So I would now look at it like this. This is going to be the build to the first drop, and then this is going to be the drop of the first drop, and then this is going to be the build to the second drop, and this one is going to be the build, the drop of the second drop. So let's look at this waveform here. I can clearly see from this waveform that it's thick there, then it goes quiet, then it goes thick here, then it goes quiet, then it goes thick. The quiet bits here are always going to be your breakdown and drop, and your second breakdown and drop. You can see it. A DJ will look at a waveform and instantly know. So I know I can scroll back to this, and there is the first drop, and I will set D on that point. Come back 8 bars to where the build would typically be. Let me just check that there, and that would be C. So I think I maybe got it wrong earlier on. It's just going to be 8 bars before the drop is typically where the build begins. And then the same thing here. I will come to the second drop here, line it up perfectly, F, pause it, go back to F, and then come back 8 bars, bang. And that is exactly how I would have my cue points on every single track. You got your intro, midway through intro, outro, midway through outro, 8 bars before the drop and first drop, 8 bars for the second drop and second drop. Now this is great because you've got these here, and you can do obviously your classic intro and outro thing, but there's slightly more to it. Not only do you have your build and drop, you've got other options. Say you're really late and something's distracted you and you just have to do a drop swap at the last minute. What you can do is, as long as quantize is on, you can wait until the last minute, and as it hits the drop, trigger the drop here and drop the volume, and that would be a drop swap as well. Another thing which I always quite liked about this is, say this track just isn't really going down very well, and like people aren't feeling it and you can just get in the vibe. Well, now what you can do is you can jump from the first drop to the second drop as long as quantize is on. So let's give this a go. Let's go back here. Let's say this track is building. I'm going to drop from the first drop to the second drop, which I instantly know is F, D, and F. Sometimes it actually, you know, on entry-level DJ decks, often there's like 4, like this, 4 hot cues, and then 4 hot cues below it. That psychologically makes more sense to me. Intro, outro, first drop, second drop. Anyway, so we can do this. We can literally just jump from the first drop to the second drop. And I drop to the second drop. That's also good, by the way, because sometimes you're playing tracks and the second drop is better than the first drop. So you can just kind of mix and match which drops you like on the fly. Again, gives you another idea why hot cues are sometimes better than memory points. You couldn't do that with a memory point. So both actually do have their place. And the best thing is, every single track I load in now, I completely understand it and it makes sense to me. It's very clear. So that is how to set your hot cues like a pro. Okay, I'm now going to teach you the most fundamental skill you need as a DJ, which is beat matching. What is beat matching? Essentially, you have one track over here that has a beat going. You come over here and you're going to match the beat of this track to this track. So both beats are playing at exactly the same time. Once you've done that, you can then filter from one track over to the other, and essentially it should feel like the track never stops playing. It's just constantly going. You're dancing along to this one, it's flowing into the next song. No one notices any difference. It flows into the next song. That's how the whole thing about DJing. Now I'm going to teach you how to do this really, really quickly. I have a track here, which I just call beat track. It's a track where I went onto Ableton, I created a beat, I had it last 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then I just printed it out as a track, which is perfect for this process here. Now, if you go ahead and get my DJ courses, I give you these. And it's not that I don't want to give it away in this video, it's just you can do other things. For example, you come to this playlist here, and you go to another track. Let's just go to this one and go to Galvanize. This track over here with just the beat sounds like this. And you come to Galvanize. If you use just the intro of that track, you've basically got the same thing. But what I'm going to be doing, because I don't want any other instruments cluttering this up at all, I'm going to go back to playlist. I'm going to go and get the beat track here. So what we're going to do, first things first, before anything happens, we're going to make sure the BPM are the same speed. See, it says 129. We can make it whatever we want, but we're just going to make it the initial speed, which is 128. Again, if you think this is a bit sensitive, you can just put it down to +6. And so we got it 128. Come over here, 128. Cool. Now, just so you know, say this was off, and this was the master track over here, and I hit beat sync, it instantly becomes 128. That button right there causes so much freaking controversy, and I have no idea why. But what I will tell you is this. It's easy enough. It's easy enough to just look. By the way, if you ever have beat sync on, you have to move the tempo out of the tempo range for it to go back to what it would have been originally, like with sync. So you've got to turn it off, and then you've got to wobble it around. There you go. Okay. This is what I think. I used to do, actually, I'm not going to use any examples. I'm just going to tell you this. If you are looking at what the BPM is, and then you go over to the other DJ deck and set the BPM while looking at the BPM, you are using technology. You're using the technology to make DJing easier for you. So why would anyone have a problem with the sync button? Because hitting it is just one notch removed. Anyway, we'll talk about sync button more later on. So let's talk about beat matching. I'm going to scroll this to the right to make it bigger. And now I can see, and you can even see that Rekordbox has put it into beats and bars. I know it's a bar because every 4 beats, it's red. I can't really zoom in, but it's red rather than white. Red indicates a bar, okay? And then white just indicates a beat. So what are we going to do? On one track, we're just going to have it playing like this, okay? Just as a track would be playing when we were DJing. On this track, I'm going to hit play and pause so it's red, come right to the beginning here, and I'm going to come right to the very first beat, and you've guessed it, I'm going to put a cue point on it. And now I can tap along. And the very first thing I'm going to get you to do, and I'm not trying to, belittle this process, but I just want to make it so easy so you pick this up in seconds, is I want you to just literally tap along. Tap a desk, tap next to the cue button, whatever you want to do, just tap. Now the reason I'm getting you to do that is now what I want you to do is tap along using the cue button. Have it at full volume for now. Now the reason why this is difficult is I've taught many people to DJ, and as soon as you hit the cue button, it makes a beat sound. So now this can really throw you off because you start doing this. Which beat is me? Which beat is that there? Which is why tapping to the side of the button often helps. Okay, so you can see why I say tap at the side. And what we're going to do now is we're going to tap at the side, and on beat, we're just going to hit the play button. So we're going to go from here to the play button, okay? Congratulations, you've done your very first beat match. Now that just so happened to land perfectly, but what happens if it doesn't land perfectly? So I'm going to hit play and hit the Q button to snap it back. So just to explain that, if I hit the Q button, then it would just snap to a new Q button. But if I hit play and hit the Q button, it snaps back to the Q button I had previously, which is at the beginning. So now let's say we hit play and the beats are slightly out. Now we know from me saying earlier on today, what you do is you hit the side of the jog wheel and you can nudge it. And slowly but surely, you nudge the tracks back in. And I'm going to make this the master track. And we're going to do this. The OCD in me kicked in then. I kind of lined them, but they were slightly out, so I went in and nudged them again. Now, obviously, that was a stupid example because they were way out before I started doing it. Typically, they're just a little bit out and you just nudge them back in like that. So there you go. You hit play, the two tracks are playing on top of each other, and you just nudge them so they're in line, okay? And lo and behold, I was looking at the beats on the screen as well to make sure they were lined up. So when the two are completely out like this, and say we're looking at this deck here, well, I can see that they're out. Like if one is here, I can see they're not on top of each other. So now I can literally just use my eyes to nudge this along until it looks like they're about the same. And then lo and behold, they are. So the technology is there. It makes it so easy. We know the BPM, we can visually line them up. Now that's relatively easy, but there's never going to be a time where you just randomly pick a random beat and bring in a track. It's always going to be on a beat. And more importantly, it's always going to be on a phrase. So there's always going to be a specific moment that you've got to go, now, that's it. So what I want you now to do is practice doing the exact same thing, but bring it in on a beat. And how do you know it's a beat? Because you see the little red line, or you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. So you could go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Now we're in, but they're out. And there you go. That's how you do it. Okay, cool. So that is how to beat match simply and easily. And you can practice it by either creating your own beat track like this or just using the intro of someone else's track. By the way, another little top tip for you, by the way, is you could actually just, let's go back and get that Chris Lake song. I've got to be really careful so I don't want this video to get taken down for just using 30 seconds of someone else's track. But the other thing you could do is you could create an in point here. I haven't got quantize on, so that didn't work. Let's start that again. Go back to the beginning of the track, pause, in point. And now you've got that looped. So now if you wanted to, you could then practice bringing this track into that. So you don't necessarily have to have my beat track for this to work. You can just have it looping. Okay, cool. So that's that. Okay, so now let's talk about the introduction of headphones. Now, this might interest you as well. This is all I take with me to a club, which is a far cry from the days when DJs used to have to carry around crates full of vinyl. I now walk in with a case that's this size. In there, I have several things. And again, I'm kind of going off piece here a little bit, but I have headphones. I have specifically made professional earplugs. So I say headphones, I mean earplugs. These are by a company called ACS. I'm not being sponsored by them or anything like that. No, I'm not sponsored by anyone, by the way. So what they are is they've been specifically fitted to my eardrums. So I had to go along and have my ears filled with this, like, I don't know what it was, cream or whatever, but it's set. And they take it out and they go and mold these exactly to your ears and they create them for you. Another interesting little thing for you. I don't know why I always tell this story, but I always find it fascinating. When they do this, they don't want this cream to go up and touch your eardrum. So they put what can only be described as a mini tampon in your ear. It's a bit of foam on a string they push right up against your eardrum. Then they fill your ear full of this stuff, wait for it to set, and then they pull this string out and they've got the set of your ear. And the first time I actually went in, the woman looked at my ear and said, yeah, we can't do it. And I said, what do you mean you can't do it? She said, your ears are 100% blocked with wax. She said, I can't see your ears. And I can't see your eardrum, sorry. And I always find this quite fascinating because everybody is so interested in what's the highest quality headphones I can get, what's the best speakers I can get. First things first, have you had your ears checked? Because the second you have all that earwax removed, suddenly you're hearing in high definition. Everybody wants to get the most expensive equipment and stuff. It's like, if your ears are crap, and actually that takes me on to the next thing. Oh, hold on, I haven't told you the story. This is what an OCD brain is like, an ADHD brain. So the person said when they put the little tampon in my ear, they said, by the way, this is probably going to make you cough. I said, cough? Like, why would it make me cough? And sure enough, he pushed this thing up against my ear, and this weird reaction, and I was coughing. I was like, it was like, I can't even explain why it happened. It was so weird, and I coughed. Anyway, on the note of having your ears filled with wax, it will wreck music if your ears are filled with wax. You won't hear the high frequencies. You just will generally be a bit deaf, which brings me on to my next point. If you're going to become a professional DJ and music producer, you're destroying your most valuable things, which is your ears. I mean, obviously it's not your most valuable. If you said to me, what would you rather lose, your hearing or your sight? I would obviously prefer to have my sight, but a very close second would be my hearing. What am I talking about? Get on with the freaking video, Phil. You want to protect your hearing, okay? The last thing you want to develop is going to a club night after night with the loudest music blasting in your ears. And as a DJ, you don't just have the music blasting in your ears, you got your headphones blasting even louder in your ears. It's worse for DJs, right? And you do not want to end up with tinnitus or tinnitus, however you want to say it, just a ringing in your ears constantly. And it will also destroy your ears, which means when it comes to mixing and mastering songs, your ears won't be as good at doing it. So I protect my ears with these ACS things. They're so tight fitting to my ear, I can't actually push them in. I've got to like lick them, which I know is gross, to lubricate them enough so they slide in nicely. I also, because I'm just a nice guy, I always have a spare pair. So if I'm ever in the club with someone, I usually take somebody along to help like film footage for Instagram. I'm like, do you want a pair of these? I'm a nice guy. What can I say? I'm a nice guy. Then I take along a load of USB sticks, at least kind of 3, and I usually even hand them out to people I'm with just in case for some reason I lose this. I'm always like, oh my God, imagine if I showed up in a club and I couldn't find this anywhere. Don't worry, my buddy's got one of my USBs in his pocket and I can probably borrow some headphones from another DJ on the night. So that's, I'm a bit like, yeah, I'm overkill if I'm honest. Then these are the headphones I use. These are Shure SE846. They're really freaking expensive. They're $1,000. I wouldn't recommend them unless you are a pro level DJ and you produce your own music. I will use these when I'm mastering a track, which is basically the last phases of making a track. You add loads of plugins, loads of effects onto it to make the track sound big and loud and club ready. And you want to make sure you get that bit right. So I use these. They're really high, like good frequency spectrum. So I can hear the lowest lows, the highest highs. It's very clear. And I put these in because the sound is delivered right to my eardrum. And it gives you a really, really crystal clear hearing of what the track, sound of what the track would sound like. So I use these. But the other reason I got them is because in a club, they're great. Just in the same way those other earplugs I had, you can kind of, you know, everyone knows how these works, right? You squidge them down into like a little line and then you stuff them in your ear. These are exactly the same. You squidge them down like that, you stuff them in right in your ear, and then it expands in your ear. So it has 2 effects. It's noise, it's not noise cancelling, but it's noise blocking. And it's in your ear and it protects your ears. So it means when I walk into the club, I have these in to protect my ears when I'm not DJing. even when I go and watch other DJs, I will wear these because the sound, like maybe I'm just getting old now, but it's so freaking loud. I'm happy to have these in and just feel it a lot of the time. The other thing about these SS ones is they don't muffle the sound. What they do is they just perfectly bring the volume down. Now, on paper, that's what they say is the case, but I can tell you now, you do lose some of the highs when you have these in your ears. This whole section wasn't really meant to be about me and my headphones. I'm going to be teaching you why you would use them when DJing, but I'm just kind of telling you about them. Now, what happens with DJing is obviously all of this stuff we're doing on the deck that isn't currently playing out, we don't want the audience to hear. So we use this thing called a cue button. What the cue button says is when my headphones are plugged in here, like this, anything I hit cue on, even if the volume is at the bottom, I want to still be able to hear it. So if I do this, I can hear what's going on in my headphones and you guys can't, okay? So that's really, really important because it means you can put your headphones in and you can hear whatever you're doing. You can preview tracks, you can test stuff out over here. You can even practice beat matching live if you want to, and none of your audience have a clue what's going on. Now, the other relevant thing that I want to tell you now, which again is slightly more advanced, is I have my headphones on a setting called mono split. You only get this on high-end gear, which basically means if I have one earpiece in here and one earpiece in here, I have it set so you can have a master cue over here. So the master cue means that even if everything was on silent, you can still hear it in your headphones. But here's the reason for it. It means when I'm mixing, even if this track here, it hasn't got cue on, I put cue on and I can hear, and so this is what mono split does. I hear the master cue in one ear. So this track here, I can hear in one ear. And this cue button here, I will hear in a different ear. Now, the way DJs typically do it is they're just listening to the club. They've got one ear. You ever see DJs do this? What they're essentially doing is one ear is listening to the club. One ear is listening to the next track that they're bringing in, which is why people do impressions to DJs. So they go, ricka, ricka, like this, right? But I never liked that because all you're doing there is blasting sounds on top of sounds. Whereas this, you get this ear protection and I can hear what's in this track, and it's kind of like a lot of DJs say when they first start using it, makes them feel a bit dizzy because you've got two tracks coming from different parts of your, brain and different ears. But actually, it's led to me being a much better mixer because when this is playing, I cue this in over here, and I can hear this track clearly, this track clearly. I can match them both. And then when I've got them both matched, I then start bringing it in, etc., etc. So essentially, this is why you bring in headphones. Headphones means you can listen to stuff over here. So now I've explained that, there's no point in me using them moving forward because you can't hear what's coming out of my headphones, but now I've explained it. So let's go back and do a beat match as if we were using our headphones. So this track over here would be playing. I'm just going to go back and select my own beat track. Sorry about this. Let's go here. Select this beat track here. Let's say this track's playing over here. This track will be at silent. I would go and set my cue point right at the beginning here. It'd probably already be set. And I'm listening to this track. And this track in my headphones, I'm going 3, 2, 1, in, like this. Line them up. And I'm doing all of this in my headphones. I'm going, do they sound like they're lined up? Yeah, they do. Nudging them along. Right, they sound perfect. Now they sound perfect. I now would bring this track up over time. Take this track away. And no one in the club knows that I brought in one track and took another track away. That is essentially what you're going to be doing in every single mix. That's why you would use headphones. So next up, I want to talk to you about frequency blending. Now, believe it or not, I'm also going to be teaching you this with just the track that has a beat drum in it, because it's always the same thing I do. And I'm going to explain it to you here. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go and load in 2 real tracks and show me doing it. But I want to show you just on this basic track because it's always the same. I do this over 16 bars. So I wait for a phrase, the outro drums, and I bring in the intro drums here. I beat match them and line them up. And then I do the same thing every single time. On the track that I'm about to bring in, I cut the lows. Now, obviously on most DJ decks, there's not 2 lows. On this deck there is, so we're just gonna cut both of them at the same time, but just think of those as one knob, like the low knob over here, okay? I'm also going to bring this up. This is a really important point. Most DJs, when they start bringing the music up really quietly from this point. I can tell you from years and years of DJ experience, people can't even hear this track until it's about the 7 or 8 mark, like 80% of the way up. So sometimes I'll put it about the halfway mark just to cue it in and bring it in, right, sometimes. But once you've got the 2 cued, you want to just skip this stage, straight up to here, and then from the 80 to 100%, this is the bit where you bring it up nice and slowly, okay? And what you'll notice is when I do this with a real track, this is the bit where you're going to hear the groove of those hi-hats coming in, right? We'll bring it up. Now, nothing really needs to change up here, apart from the fact sometimes when you have 2 hi-hats playing on top of each other and there's a tss, tss, tss over here and the same thing over here, it can sound really piercing. So the one thing I always do is as I bring this up slowly from the 80 to 100%, I begin to take away the highs from the track that's currently playing. Remember, this track is playing, this is the track we're bringing in. Beat match, bring it up to about 80%, and then slowly start bringing it up here while taking away the highs. Now I can tell you this as well, almost every time I bring it all the way up, and I've only ever really cut the highs from the 12 o'clock position to maybe the 10 o'clock position or 11 o'clock position. I don't take many highs. Last thing I want is for people to feel like this song's kind of being filtered. It's not. We're just making sure they don't clash too much. I will bring in the track and get this all the way to the top after 8 bars. I've got 8 bars to do that. I don't mess around. So it's happening, I cue it in, I match it, this comes straight up to here, and then I nudge it up slowly to 8 bars. Halfway through the intro and the outro. You guys know about that at this point. And then at the 8 bar phrase, so 8, 2, 3, 4, I will swap the bass out. I never have 2 bass lines playing on top of each other. The reason is high frequencies can sit on top of each other and can sound good. So remember what we said before, the highs are the percussive sounds in a track. So you have tick, 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 and then tsk, tsk, tick, tick, tsk, tick, 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 tick. They work well. The lower you go, the worse things sound. If I hum a bass now, and then sing a different bass, all of a sudden you've got this, it's just what DJs would be describing as a muddy sound. The lower it goes, it's something you feel more than hear. But remember, it's also the driving force of the track. And you don't want it to suddenly go like, it's gonna sound awful. So you never have 2 bass lines sitting on top of each other at the same time. If you want to test it, go and play 2 tracks, cut the mids and highs on both tracks, and just let the basses play on top of each other, and you'll quickly see what I mean. It sounds awful. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. This track, everything's normal. This track, we've slowly brought it up. We've got the bass cut, obviously. We're bringing it up to the 10 o'clock position, and we've cut that after 4 bars. Then, after midway through, after 8 bars, we swap the basses. We just swap them. Usually on the Nexus 2, I just go bang, and it's done, right? And it's great. It works every single time. It's almost invisible. It's like one bass line goes to the other bass line. The other thing is, remember, with an intro, after about 4 bars, they bring in the bass line. And on the outro, after 8 bars, they bring in the bass line. On the outro, after 8 bars, they remove the bass line. So it kind of often just feels like one bass line just flows straight into the next bass line. Works really well. At this point, Now it's been cut. I now continue, rather than bringing the volume down on the track I'm getting rid of here, I very rarely bring the volume down. I just begin to cut the rest of the lows. Cut. I just slowly but surely tweak these back and forth. I am listening to the song, but really, I could do this with my eyes shut at this point. We're just slowly bringing it away. And by the time you're done, all of these are at 0. And so no one can hear anything anyway. And then after the full 16 bars of that phrase, bang, that comes away, okay? So I'm going to show you right now and count along exactly what this will look like, and assume I've got my headphones in. I'm not, actually, you know, I could put my headphones, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it, I'm going to count along, and you're going to see everything I do. So in 8 bars, this comes up, the highs are cut, the lows are cut, highs are cut slightly here. Then I just, on phrase, halfway through, swap these, and then I slowly but surely begin to take these away. Let me show you exactly what it looks like with the beat track, and I will go and do the exact same thing on an actual track, and it's going to look like magic, okay? Because it works every single time. Okay, so let's give it a go. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, and swap. Now I just begin to take these away. Okay, so let's have a look at what that looks like with 2 actual tracks. On one track here, I've got one of my tracks called Drug Loop. You can go and listen to any of my music on Spotify. You can find this one. And I've got another track over here, which is another one of my tracks called Defined by Law. They're both in the same key, which is why I've picked these. Although I can instantly see that this one's 128 and this one's 129. So I'm going to make this 128 as well. So now the BPMs are exactly the same. And I'd be doing all of this live, but I'm just going to run you through exactly what I do. Now, let's say we want to come from the end of Drug Loop. That one's playing over there, and we're going to bring this track in over here. First thing I need to do is find that 16 bars. So I'm going to go and look for where that breakdown is. I'm just going to run you through because this is kind of what I'd be doing beforehand, and you can just see the entire process. So this is the breakdown here. You can see it kind of breaks down that point. So I come back to here, set a cue point, back 2, 1, 2. This marker here is exactly, yeah, that's exactly why I would bring it in the club, is the truth. And then we're going to go to the end of this track because we're going to be mixing from the outro of this track to the intro of this track. So you go right, let's just go right to the end. So we come right to the end. Final beat is here. There. And we're going to do the same thing. 1, 2. And I'm going to cue point, memory point here. Did it work? Okay. For some reason it's not working. It doesn't matter. It's because there's an issue with USBs with the new CDJs, which I won't bother going into. I'll know where it is anyway. It's this last bit. So I'm just going to come back a little bit here and put a pause. And I'm going to do exactly this, but obviously I'm going to be doing it in return. So I'll cut the lows of this track, and I'll play this, and I will do exactly what I said. So here we go. Genius, it works every single time. And those of you who are counting will have noticed at 8 bars I swapped the bass. I'll show you how well this works. I'll now go from the end of this track into this track. So let's do exactly the same thing. Just as we can prepare, put everything back to where it was before. I'm going to go right to the end of this track here. So it ends there. And I'm going to go back to 1, 2. There's your 16 bar marker. Put a memory point here. For some reason, memory points aren't working. frustrating, but doesn't matter. And I'm going to go right to the beginning of this track over here. Or technically we could go and find the breakdown. So let's go and find where it is. Yeah, so here. There's the breakdown. So I'm going to put a marker here, back to there. Notice I'm bringing it quite far in. This is a really long extended club mix. So I've just found that bit there. Cut the lows of this track and let's go back a little bit before this point here. It's the exact same thing that happens every single time. And you'll see that one wasn't perfect. It wasn't quite beat matched because I didn't have my headphones in, so I couldn't really hear that it wasn't beat matched until they came up to full volume. But it's a really important point. I'm going to keep that in the video because even though some of you with a very keen ear might have been like, yeah, that's slightly out, and you'd have heard me nudge it in around the halfway mark or, 8 bars in. The truth is, no one notices that kind of stuff. Honestly, beats being out by a millisecond here and there, no one really cares. They're drunk. It's late. They don't know what's going on, honestly. So don't worry about it too much. Anyway, you see how magic that is? So I did the exact same thing. I just followed the exact process that I explained to you with just a regular beat, and notice how freaking perfect it is. That right there is exactly what I do 99% of the time. Honestly, it's the same thing every single time. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's still insanely fun, by the way. You might be like, well, that's a bit boring. It's not. It's great because you're playing the music you like and everything's flowing and it's great. It's awesome. So there you go. That's how to frequency max with real tracks. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is beat matching by ear. Now, I have to first of all say, you're never really going to need to use this. As long as you've got your tracks all to the grid, you've checked every song beforehand that the BPM is right and it goes to the grid, which Rekordbox should do automatically, you're never really going to need to know how to do this. However, if you really want to get good and you just want to have that confidence, you know how to do it, I'll show you how. Now, the first thing is, you want to be able to hear phrases, okay? Now, we've kind of already covered this, but if I go to this track here, the bits you're looking out for is when everything goes quiet and then a drum comes back in, or there's some white noise, and then something changes, or instruments are taken away. Now, sometimes instruments are taken away just before the phrase comes back in as well. So it's really when the beat comes back in is what you're listening for. So if I just play this track now, we won't look, and we're just gonna realize, we're just gonna listen for when that phrase is.
Opiates, the synthetic drugs, and the cocaine marijuana.
You hear it? Everything went away, beat came back. And I want you to just get comfortable hearing these moments, right? Now, once we've got that moment, for starters, we're just going to actually match the beats. So we're going to put that on 130. We're going to put this on 130 over here. And we'll just go to the first beat of this entire track over here, like this. And then we're just going to wait for this exact moment. We know the BPM's the same. You can just cover these up with bits of paper like this, okay? And we're going to wait for it. We're going to cue it in. I'm just going to have them at full volume for now. And if I feel like they're slightly off, I'll nudge it forward. If I feel like, oh no, it's actually getting far apart, I'll go back. Sometimes you get it wrong. And we'll just see. So I'm just going to make sure this is on the right thing. Yeah, okay. Let me just go back a little bit so we're not just aimless. So this is roughly before phrase, and I can tell it's before phrase because I can see it kind of goes quiet here. So let's cover it again, and all I'm going to do is wait for that phrase and bring it in. go ahead and you do the match as normal. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do. Just make sure the BPMs are the same. Make sure your cue point's on the kick drum, ready to bring it in. Wait for that phrase, practice bringing it in, and then nudging the jog wheel appropriately. Like, I actually brought it in pretty good then, but you can kind of nudge it forward and back, and you're just listening. You're just going like, okay, it sounds off. If I nudge it this way, is it getting worse? Yes, let's go back the other way, and you just want to line it up. Now, there's a slightly more complicated thing you can do, which is you can make the BPMs different. So we can come over to this one and say that one's 130 and this one is 128. And now you can get good at hearing that the BPMs are out and then adjusting the tempo so the BPMs are the same. This is difficult. There's no two ways about it. This is tough. My advice to you would be go to a track that has a very basic beat. If you want, you can just go to the beginning of a track and just loop the first 2 bars with just a basic part of the track playing. It would sound a little bit like this. Okay, so that's going over there. And then we're going to come over to this track over here. And do you know what we could actually do? We could come to the beginning. Actually, we don't need to do it. We're just going to put a beat at the beginning of the kick. Now, what we're going to do is that's looping over here. I'm going to bring that up and I'm going to tap it in and then cue in this beat. And we already know the beats are going to drift out. So then the next thing you have to do is go, when I nudge the jog wheel, and again, this all takes practice, guys, but when I nudge the jog wheel, am I nudging it forward or am I nudging it back? Now, we already know this track over here is a faster BPM than this track over here, so the chances are I'm going to have to be constantly nudging it forward and forward to keep it up, because this BPM is going to be slower than this BPM, so I'm going to have to be speeding this track up, okay? Once we've figured that out, we're going to take our finger off the cue button so it snaps back, and we're going to nudge this up a bit, and then we press play again, and we listen. And then we nudge it up a bit, and we listen. And we nudge it up a bit, and we listen. Until we finally think, I think that's right, and we want to take it off and see that it's roughly about the same. You're never going to get it absolutely perfect. This is how you do it. And it's a bit laborious, and it's a bit boring. And quite frankly, if you were having to do an entire digital DJ set, and doing this on every single track, it'd be stressful and miserable. But I'll show you how to do it anyway. Cover this screen over here, cover this screen over here. Okay, let's have a go. Now that's it. That's kind of as close as you would need to get. In fact, when I say it's as close as you need to get, now without even looking at where the BPMs are, I will do a full blend, okay? Oh, I can't do it because I can't get to the end of the song. Oh, it doesn't matter. Essentially, now that's close enough. So all I was doing, and I'm sure it's very boring for you to watch, is like cue it in, listen. Does it need to be sped up? Yes. Speed it up, cue it in, listen. Speed it up a little bit. And let's just see how close I got. I may have got close, I may not have. It doesn't really matter. Let's have a look. So this one is 130, and we got to 129.8. So there you go. And 129.8 0.2 out, you could pretty much do a 16 bar blend then, and you wouldn't even really have to nudge the jog wheel much. So you can practice that. And it means if you're ever DJing live and for some reason the numbers are off and everything's off, then you actually have got the full 2-3 minutes of the song playing to figure out what the BPM is and bring it in. It's quite a cool skill to have. Even you saw me, I've been doing this for years. It took me a while to do it, but it took me less than 3 minutes, which is the typical length of a song, which I know if I was ever in a situation where I had to beat match by ear, I could do it before I had to do the outro drums. It would be stressful though, and I wouldn't enjoy the entire DJ set. So that is beat matching by ear. Next thing I want to talk about is the sync button. Now, the sync button, I just want to talk about the controversy. At this point, you understand what the sync button does. You click it, and it automatically syncs for you. And for some reason, and I don't know why, a lot of DJs get on their high horse about this, about other DJs who use the sync button. I'm telling you now, I know loads of professional DJs who use the sync button. There's more reasons you would use the sync button than just the laziness of using the tempo slider. Like I said earlier on, when you sync 2 tracks and you move the tempo of one track, it will move them both at the same time. One cool thing which I find myself using it for every now and again is if you're about to do a beat match and at the last second you glance and you go, oh no, this one is 128, let's say, and this one's 130, and we have to blend. And I could use those critical last seconds before I have to bring it in on phrase to be going like this and trying to get it in place. Or you can just double tap beat sync. So let's say this is all the way down here at 127. This is playing. In fact, I'll turn the volume down. That's playing over there. And I'm like, oh no, it's the wrong. You can just go 1, 2. And it snaps it to that beat over there and takes it back out of beat sync. So it's a really quick and easy way to do it. Then you go ahead and do your blend. And then afterwards, you nudge this around until it reactivates it. So it's a really quick way to just go bang, it's on point. But of course, that's what everybody knows the beat sync does, but just the double tap thing is something that not a lot of DJs know about. And that's it. Now, maybe some vinyl DJs could complain and say, you know, we're here with our vinyl and we're beat matching. It's like, fine, go ahead and do that. That's a hobby for you, and you enjoy vinyl, and you enjoy the technicalities of vinyl, so do it. But don't do it and then complain about everybody else. That'd be a bit like somebody begrudgingly driving a manual car and going, oh, you guys with automatic, we got it so easy, it makes me angry. It's like, buy an automatic then. Then here's the thing. How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Because ultimately, if I can see the BPM here and I can see the BPM here, by just using the tempos slider and adjusting it perfectly to the exact BPM, I'm cheating anyway. And then you think to yourself, well, this is all digital. I'm not carrying around huge crates of vinyl DJ gear. So I'm cheating by turning it with a little USB. That's cheating as well. And then you want to go even further? I didn't make a lot of the songs I'm playing. I'm playing someone else's songs, so I cheated there. And then even if you want to go one step back, okay, I made both of these songs, but I didn't go to a drum kit and hit the drum kit and record it. The kick I used was a sample. The bass line was a pre-made, it wasn't a pre-made bass line, but it's a pre-made bass sound that I just used to create the bass line I've created. The claps I didn't record. So, like, how far back do you want to go? We all, at some point in the age of digital DJing, cheated, you know? So what, you're going to complain just because I hit the sync button? Anyway, you get the idea. Don't worry about it. It's a load of nonsense. If you want to use the sync button, go ahead. Certainly won't get any hate from me. Next thing I wanted to talk about is emergency transitions. Now, I'm actually not going to talk about this very long because really, before you go and play a club, you should have a really good understanding about phrasing, intro, and outro. If you use those, you're never really going to be in an emergency. But sometimes you might be in a club and maybe someone comes over to speak to you and you've missed your point, and now the end of the track is quickly approaching and you've missed your cue point and you don't want to do some emergency scramble. So here's a really good thing for you to know. If it's playing, what you can do is you can just use beat jump here and it will jump you back to an earlier point in the track. So let's say it's coming right to the end here. You can jump back using beat jump. It will do it live. It will be instant and it will be almost invisible to your audience. So let's say this is playing here. Now that one was obvious, but most of the time you can jump back 8 bars and buy yourself that extra bit of time. And by the way, even if you do jump back to a point where it kind of is obvious you've jumped to a different part of the song, I've done that in the past. It's not great. This is an emergency. You've cocked up a little bit, but it's better for you to just jump back like that and then do a nice smooth transition between the 2 tracks than for the transition to be messed up, in my opinion. So now another thing for you to know as well, you can also jump to beat jump up here, and then you can click this and you can jump back not just 32 bars but 64 bars. So say I was here and jump back 64 bars. Now another thing you can do is you can come to this option up here and hit beat loop. So let's say I was right at the end of the track here and I was really like, oh my gosh, it's gonna run out. You can literally hit beat loop really quickly and put a loop on. And it buys you that extra bit of time. So these are the only really emergency situations you're going to have. Now, one other thing is, on pro level mixers, you don't have echo out. Echo out is something that's just a lovely button to have on entry level DJ decks. It's like, you just want to be like, ka-ka, 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 and then bring in another track. Works better with pop music. You wouldn't use this necessarily with house music. But if you're ever wondering how to do an echo out, the way you do it is, let's go to the end of a drop. What you would do is select echo here, and I'm going to be going over this mixer a bit more detail in a minute. But echo, you would put it to quite a high amount, maybe at least the 50% mark. Actually, do you know what you can do? You can have it turned all the way down, activate it, which will turn on echo, make sure echo is on a half beat, and then just introduce it at the last moment and turn the volume down. So it would look a little bit like this. Oh, and by the way, another thing to mention, on pro level DJ decks, you really need to select what lane you've got the effects on. At the moment on this mixer, I've got here selected so it does all lanes, but if I just wanted an echo out on this track here, what you can do is have echo on, turn the level depth all the way down, activate it, bring it up at the end of a drop or at the end of a phrase, and turn the volume down. It's not amazing, but we're talking about emergency transitions. So it would look like this. Bang, you bring in the next track, right? That's it. That's all I'm going to talk about with emergency transitions. The biggest emergency you're going to have is if you haven't timed it properly and you're running out at the end of the song, which I've already covered. So that's that. Okay, so I just want to take a little bit of time now to dive into the V10 and give you some interesting information about it. Now, because I haven't already done the Nexus 2, which is the main club standard mixer, I'm going to be telling you the differences between this and the other one without having shown you the other one. It just works out easier for me because I'm going to have to disconnect it and connect the other one in a moment. So, it's all very similar, apart from the fact that there's an extra filter knob for the low and mids. It's kind of annoying, and like I said, I just treat both of these lower knobs now as if they're one. So if I'm swapping the basses, I now have to swap the basses of 2 mixers. The way this really works is that the low end is only really cutting out the very, very low, sub 120 hertz, right down in the low energy, and then the low mids is more like around the 120 to 200 hertz, and it's so freaking technical, it's pointless. All you need to know is the lows here are the lows you would feel, and these lows are the lows you would hear, is the best way to look at it. But honestly, it's kind of annoying having 2 knobs. Now the next thing is the filter. It works different to the A9 and the Nexus 2 because the way it works on those decks is the filter's in the middle, just as it is on entry-level DJ decks. You sweep down to filter down, you sweep up to filter up. For me, that just it makes more sense. But with these, you have to select low pass filter and then filter up, even though what you're doing is filtering down. It's like, it just doesn't fit with my brain, that. And then high pass, you filter up, and that does filter up. It's just kind of weird. I don't know why they changed that, if I'm honest. It's kind of annoying. So there's that as well. The other thing is, you've obviously got all your effects over here. Actually, all the effects over here are very, very similar to on the Nexus. You've got delay, which I'll just quickly run you through all of these since we're here and I'm giving you an in-depth video anyway. Delay is pretty obvious. It just delays. Then echo, which is very similar to delay. So let's have a listen to the difference in the two. Now let's have a listen to echo. Very similar thing. If you want to know when I would use delay and echo, echo is great for adding a bit of groove. So if you take the hi-hats are the groove of the track. What you can do is you can take echo and just apply it to the highs. Now you're just echoing the high frequencies. So now if you go and put it on an unusual setting like 3/4, now if you add in a little bit of this, it will take the hi-hat that's already in the track and add an extra to the, it'll basically echo the hi-hat to a 3/4 rhythm, and it adds a really kind of cool groove. Have a listen. So that's when I typically use that. Ping pong is the same as the delay, but it just bounces the delay. So it goes delay, 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 delay. That's what a ping pong delay essentially is. Spiral, let's have a listen to this. I rarely use this. Let me try and explain what's going on. It sounds like it's got a bit of a bit crusher effect on it, so there's a bit of distortion. It's obviously got a bit of a delay to it, and if you pitch it up and down, it also kind of pitches it up and down. I never use it. Yeah, don't really use it that much. Helix, let's have a listen. Unusual effect. Essentially what it's doing is just taking a small bit of the track and looping it. That's all I can really hear that it's doing. And then the interesting thing about it is you can link it, you can change the time of which it's happening, and it'll pitch it down or pitch it up. Now, potentially, listening to it, you could potentially use it on a build, use a bit of Helix, add it in, put the time up, and it'll create a bit of a natural rising effect. Remember, as a DJ, there's 3 things you can do to add tension. Take away the bass, then bring the bass back in, add a repetitive sound, pitch it up. So Helix will add a repetitive sound and allow you to pitch it up. Let's have a listen to it on the build and see what it does. Sounded terrible. I wouldn't use it. Next thing, reverb. We know what reverb does. The best thing about reverb is it kind of creates this psycho-acoustic effect. Well, when you add reverb, it makes things sound further away. And then when you bring the reverb back or take the reverb off, it makes things sound more present. This can be used quite a lot in drops because you're essentially taking a track, making it sound further away, and then bringing it back. Let's go to the second half of this drop, and I'll have a go with reverb, and I'll show you. And again, pretty cool stuff because you can play with the time and it kind of pitches the reverb noise up and down. Again, have a listen. Reverb, we know. Shimmer, let's have a listen to this. Yeah, so shimmer's an interesting one. It's essentially a type of reverb that has a very saturated high end, if you wanted to put it into words. You can obviously put your finger on this screen here as well and filter it up and down. The lower you went, it sounded like it was more high end reverb, and the lower you went, it sounded more like a low end reverb. Have a listen. So if you ever want to get a really shimmery type reverb or a really muddy low end reverb, you could do that. And then remember, with the weird thing about this is you could also take away the highs and just add shimmer to just the highs and then filter it down. And again, I don't really know. I don't use a lot of these effects, if I'm honest. Flanger. Flanger's an interesting one. Flanger creates a kind of phasing effect. And the best way I could describe it in words is it creates a kind of... And I know that's not a word, that's a sound. Let's have a listen to flanger. So you can move it up and down with the tempo, so it's either going, or it's going. Again, it's not an effect I tend to use. I don't use a lot of effects, I have to be honest. Phaser, it's like flanger, but it's not as aggressive. Let's have a listen. So let me explain what this is doing. Phaser is slightly different to flanger. The way phaser's working is it's creating... I can't be bothered to give you the technical thing, but essentially it's just creating peaks in the EQ and then moving those peaks around, which again creates this... It's doing something slightly different to flanger, same kind of sound. The next one is filter. This basically is the same as turning a filter and then turning it up and down. So the next one is trans effect. Trans effect is interesting. Essentially what it does is it turns the volume up and then turns the volume down. And by how much is by the depth, and then how quickly the volume is turned up and down is based on what parameter you've got it set to. So it would sound a little bit like this. Okay, roll mode is very similar to Helix. It takes a small amount of the track and loops it. But it just loops it by the amount you want to add it back in. And it'll loop it by the amount you have selected. So if you go to a 1 bar, it will loop 1 bar. It might be beat, actually. Let's have a listen. Get out of here. And it will loop the exact moment that you hit the button. So that's kind of cool. It's quite interesting. Turns out it was a beat, not a bar, by the way. 1 beat. Pitch. We'll take the song and pitch it up and pitch it down. Use all these effects with caution. Remember I said at the beginning, if you're going to alert people... This is my main thing when it comes to effects. If you're adding enough of an effect that the people in the audience are aware that you're messing with the song, you're now fitting into the bad DJ category, where people are going to go, what is this guy doing? Or girl, what are they doing, right? And you never want to trigger that response in people. And then my other thought is, as a music producer, if I wanted a load of reverb on the track, I would have put it on the track. I don't need another DJ to come along and smear a load of reverb over my track if that's not what I intended my track to be heard as. Now that opens up a huge amount of debate, because then people go, what is the DJ going to do if they can't add any effects to the music? And so there lies the big debate. But personally, I use effects very, very sparingly, if at all, if I'm honest. So we've been through all these effects here. Now, the other interesting thing about these DJ decks, and this is one of the more interesting things about the V10, is that you can add secondary effects over here. So what you've got here is send lanes. So let me explain this. There's a reverb over here and a reverb over here. So yes, you could add in 2 amounts of reverb if you wanted to. You add it in and the reverb will come in. It sounds like this. So that's the reverb. Same thing with dub echo, which would add a kind of dub echo. Let's have a listen to it. Dub echo is like an echo with a filter built in, and the echo never really goes exactly to the beat, so it's like... Have a listen. What it's all about. You ain't got no money. Long delay and short delay are both just delays over different time periods. Now you can affect all of these here with the size, which is like the feedback, how long the sound goes on for is the size. So if you added a huge amount of feedback to a reverb, the reverb would just last for a long time and therefore give the effect that the reverb's bigger. Time, actually a similar thing. So time is like how long. Let me play it to you so you can hear. So I'm going to, first things first, I'm going to put reverb on and I'm going to change the time knob so we can have a listen. Why don't you do right, like I'm going to do it with reverb first. So this is reverb and I'm going to put the time up. Let's turn time down. Now I'm going to put the size feedback up and turn it down. It'll do the same thing on reverb, really. So they're basically both doing the same thing. They'll have a slightly different effect on things like dub echo and stuff like that. Tone is interesting. Tone, all you really need to know is imagine like turning up the volume of the highs or turning up the volume of the lows. It basically will, if you filter it up, it will make the effects. It will like turn up the highs of the effect or sweep down to turn up the lows of the effects. So again, if we took reverb, and let's make it really long, and I'm just going to play around with tone. Actually a bit like a filter. And then mix level, which is just the volume of it, okay? Now, here's the really interesting thing about the V10. You can take the master mix and turn it off. And then if you come up to the top here, you can create a channel that just has that effect on it by turning it to built in. By the way, another thing about these decks, you can add external effects. If you had like a reverb pedal or a guitar amp pedal, you can plug it into the back and then send these effects through an external effects machine or thing and then run it back into this mixer, which I just don't think you're going to do, if I'm honest. I just don't know who would do that. But you can create built-in. Now, what this does is if I now turn Master Mix off, I can send the reverb sound by itself through its own channel. So you'll notice if I press play here and turn up the reverb, don't hear any reverb. It's on this channel here, which means I can now send the reverb through this channel and then do things to just the effect. So I can have things happen on just the effect. So we'll turn this on. There's the reverb playing by itself. If I wanted to, I could turn the lows down on the reverb and bring the highs up, which, by the way, we just covered is the exact same thing Tone's doing anyway, but I can EQ the reverb if I wanted to. I could compress the reverb if I wanted to. And then even crazier, if I want to, I can now add one of these effects to the reverb. So if I wanted to, I could go to filter over here, there, and I could add a load of reverb and then have the filter sweeping up on the reverb sound alone. Which, like, then again, in the actual song, let's add a bit of reverb and have it filtering around. Let's potentially do it on the build-up here.
You had plenty money in 1922.
And you can see, so you could add the trans effect to the reverb if you want, and you can add individual effects to other effects. So you can kind of start to build up these unlimited effects on effects. But again, remember what I said, I don't tend to use a lot of this stuff. And so I think we've pretty much covered this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and get the Nexus 2 and plug it in instead. And I'll run you through any differences on that and any additional stuff there. But we've actually covered most of it because this mixer is far more advanced than the Nexus 2 anyway. Let me go and plug it in and I'll show you that. Okay, so we've now plugged in the DJM 900 Nexus 2. This is very similar to the new A9 that's just been released. It's a slightly older version, but this is actually the one you're going to see in most clubs. Now, having looked at the V10, this sound looks like a freaking toy, doesn't it? It looks so simple. So, as we already know, less EQs, much nicer if I'm honest, simpler to look at. I like that. Sweep up, sweep down. Now, this is another big difference. With this filter here, you have to select filter, right? And now it will filter up and down. Now, the interesting thing is you've got different settings. This is again different to the V10, is you've got different things it'll do. So in the same way on the V10, there was like a dub echo that we had to send the sound to. With this, you just select dub echo and now you can filter it in or out. So I'll take a moment just to run through all of these. Space, let's have a listen to it.
Get out of here. Get me some
To me, space sounds a little bit like a reverb, a delay, and a high pass all in one. So it sounds like it's kind of boosting the high frequencies when you tune it to the right, adding a bit of delay, adding a bit of echo, and when you bring it to the left, same thing, it adds more delay, more echo, but it filters down. Have a listen. Again, I very rarely use that one. Dub echo we've already done. Sweep, let's have a listen.
Get out of here. Get me some
So sweep is interesting. Let's go through it. When you tune it to the right, it's a high pass. That's all it is. It's quite an aggressive high pass. However, when you tune it to the left, what it is it's a gate. So what do I mean by gate? A gate just lets through the higher, the punchier transients. So a kick, doo, 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 or a hi-hat, these are transients that kind of jump out of the mix. When you tune it to the right, it just allows those transients through. Let's have a listen. Go back.
Get out of here. Get me some
See, it's just letting the kick and the hi-hat through. So it's quite an interesting thing. Noise, this is an interesting one. So this is the only effect here that does something independently. So I can now come to any lane I want, like this one, or channel, and I can sweep up. And essentially what it's doing is just kind of filtering up. Now, another little thing I want to mention, parameter will turn up the volume of sweep. And so it's kind of filtering up and filtering it down. Again, remember what I said. Any kind of rising sound adds tension. So again, I made this track that I'm playing. I didn't want a big sweep, but if you add it in, you'll realize it kind of does add a bit of tension. Let's have a listen.
You had plenty money, 1922. Let other women make a
Which sounds quite cool. And then you can obviously do the whole James Hype thing, where you can add in the white noise if you want to. And as you add it in, you can do the stutter. Or if you want to, which I think is actually better, you can put your crossfader to A on this side. So this channel is A, and this channel is B, and then you just tap. Actually, it's always better if you leave B in the center because you don't want to cut that track out at all. And as you bring it up, if you want to learn how to do that, really simple. Hold your thumb against the crossfader and use your finger like a hammer to just dunk, 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 dunk like this. And you can just open up and close it and just practice. Let's turn it up a bit. There we go. That's how you do the whole James Hype thing. Another interesting thing, there's trans over here, right? So trans will also do the James Hype thing without you having to do anything at all. Turn it up. So you can do the James Hype thing without actually having to do anything. You just put the trans effect on. So Q button, we already know what this is, and the Q button over here. Oh, we hadn't finished going through. Crush. Crush is a bit crusher. It's essentially down samples the song and it creates a kind of high pitch, fuzzy distortion sound. Let's have a listen. The way I always look at this is almost like if you took a high quality sound and you ran it through the most basic speaker, almost like I can't even explain it. It just downsizes the quality to a point where it's almost inaudible. Makes it sound a little bit more robotic. If you go up, it filters up. If you go down, it does the same thing, but filters down. See what I mean by the whole robotic thing? And if you move it slightly, it creates this wow, wow kind of sound. Very robotic sounding. And then filter, which is exactly what we know. Headphones over here. All of these are exactly the same. Slight difference is there's now not a screen that you can run your finger up and down, which I was doing on the V10. But you can, of course, put your finger on any of these, 18, 8, quarter, half, and you can flick around these by just touching the pad here. Another interesting thing for you to know is you don't have to activate it. If you have it on effect like trans, you can just touch it and it will turn the effect on. Let's do it with noise. So I'm going to sweep this up. So that'd be something cool you could do. You could sweep this up. If you wanted to do that James Hype thing again. I say it's a James Hype thing. I'm sure he didn't invent that. Anyway, so that is that. Like I said, much simpler mixer. You've obviously got some additional things down here. There's something called isolator. Isolator on your EQ means if you cut everything, it's complete silence, okay? So again, let me show you this. Gone. However, if you have it on EQ mode, it won't actually cut it. It'll just remove minus 26 dB, which means even if you have it all the way down, some sound is still coming through. I have no idea why anybody would ever want some sound to continue coming through if you've turned it to 0. I mean, some people might argue, oh, it's more musical. It's not. If I chose that I wanted some sound to still come through, I wouldn't put it to 0. Now, the interesting thing is, on the V10, you don't have this option. So only the highs and the lows have the ability to cut it to nothing, and the other two knobs in the middle will only go to minus 26, which again, I find annoying. Like I just said, if I wanted it to go to 0, I'll turn it to 0. If I want a little bit of noise still coming through, I won't turn it to 0. That functionality I don't quite get. And then there's the crossfader curve, which is, this stuff here. So essentially, crossfader over on this bit here just means like from here to here is full volume. If I had it all the way that way, it's more like a gradual curve, like it's turning up the volume of B gradually and turning up the volume of A gradually. Whereas this is more like you bring it to here, and now B is at full volume, bring it to here, and now A is, it's like, it just basically means the curve of the volume is closer to the edges. I don't know if I've explained that very well, but I'm going to move on. And again, we've got this, which is the crossfader curve. It's kind of what I just explained. Is it more like a hockey shape? So it's going volume really high and then volume really low. Like, think of it like a hockey shape, whereas this is just more like steep. It's instead of it kind of slowly bringing it up, it's more like a straight line. I probably explained that really badly. In all honesty, it really doesn't matter. So you now know the big differences between this mixer and the last mixer. I want to just quickly touch on some of the points of what the 3000X has that this doesn't. Again, I've kind of already touched on this. The main thing, the big one, is this gate Q feature that these decks don't have for some reason. That's the big one. And then in terms of actual functionality, I touched on it briefly before, but if you go to browse, you can now hit edit and rearrange tracks. That's the second big thing you can do here. Another strange one that they've added, let me take this off. Another strange one that they've added is if you're in a club and for some reason somebody comes up and wants to peek at the name of the track you're playing, you can hit this button here, which hides the name of the track. I mean, honestly, I've said this before on my Instagram, if you're doing that, you're just a twat. I just don't know why you would want to hide the name. If you're really that bothered about people seeing the name, just rename it in record box, so if somebody comes and looks, they won't know the name. Like, it's just such a silly, pointless thing, really. I mean, the main difference between the CDJ 3000X and this is the screen is gorgeous. It's really lovely. But that's pretty much it. There's really not much more. I mean, they've talked a lot about how you can now connect your iCloud account. So you come along, you scan this code on your DJ decks, and then you can just directly sign into your Rekordbox account. And the Rekordbox account with all your music will just appear here. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but I won't use it in the same way I don't use streaming services, because until it is absolutely watertight, which I don't think I'll never be comfortable turning up to a club with no USB, going, yeah, don't worry, I'm just going to scan the QR code and up's going to come all my music, or I'm just going to go into Beatport and sign in. No DJ's ever going to do that, so I'm not really interested in either of those features. So those are the main difference between the CDJ 3000X and the 3000. Finally, I want to talk about the RMX. Now, this is actually really old tech. This thing's been kicking around for about 10 years now, but it's popping up everywhere, even in clubs I've been DJing at recently, like it's the new kid on the block. So I'm just going to take a moment to quickly run you through this thing as well, and when you'd kind of use it and why you'd use it. So it's got kind of three sections. The first thing here is like an EQ section, which also has some effects, which I'll run you through in a second. Just an effects area here. At the top, you can see it says build up, which are these different effects here. You select and you turn this and it will add those effects in. And then there's a breakdown section. So these, what they're basically saying is use these effects on the build up of a song, use these effects just in the middle of a song in the breakdown section. But in all honesty, you can use either or, right? Now and then there's also a section down here called, it's like a pad effects. You can basically add in like kick drums, claps. You can sequence some stuff on a very basic level. Now, the interesting thing about the RMX is it's actually got a kill switch. So this is the most interesting thing, which I actually love about it. Sometimes you might have lots of stuff going on. You've cut the lows, you're adding in some spiral effect, you've got a kick or a snare drum, and then you can just go bang, and it kills all of it and just resets it. And then you can go back in your own time and put everything back to where it was. Now, the interesting thing about this kill switch is it has multiple functions. So it has a vinyl break mode. Let's have a listen. So vinyl break, or it has echo. Or it has a backspin. So it not only kills the effect, but it has one of these functions built in, which is kind of weird. So it means when you use it, you've got to kind of use it and get rid of it quickly. Now, the other interesting thing about this kill switch is it's got three parameters, 1, 2, and you can kind of say 1, 2, 3. And that's how quickly the effect happens. So with vinyl break, same thing with echo. just how quickly it happens. So, for example, say you had some huge crazy effect going on, it might look a little bit like this.
You had plenty money 1922. Let other women make a fool.
Or let's use something as and this track's quite so stripped back, it's hard to actually even add effects to it. So let's try noise instead.
Why don't you do right like some other man?
And you can just kill the effect like that. So let's talk about this area here. So you've got these different effects and you've got two different sub-parameters. Now these sub-parameters just do different things to the effect. So for example, on noise, if I turn this up and then turn the sub-parameter 1 up, it turns the volume of the white noise up. Or sub-parameter 2 adds like a filter that's going up and down. Let's have a listen. Now, I don't want this to be a really in-depth video just about this, but just know you can play around with these different parameters. You've got echo. I'll just let you hear what each of them does. Most of them we've already discussed, that they're very similar to these effects here, but the interesting one actually is reverb up. So it adds reverb and pitches the reverb up. But as we've already discussed, if you want, you can add reverb and then turn the time knob, which will also pitch the reverb up and down on these decks here. Let's check out these effects. Remember, you're only ever going to be adding these in very sparingly anyway. So we've ran through all of these. This is high pass echo, which means it's adding an echo and then filtering it up. This is low pass echo, adding an echo and filtering it down, taking away the high frequencies. This is crush, which is the same thing as bit crusher or crush button here, and adding an echo, so crush echo. Spiral down, which is the same as spiral. Is this, yes, this deck's got, this mixer's got spiral as well, which is kind of like that very shimmery reverb. And then reverb down, as you add it in, it adds reverb but pitches it down. Those are all those effects there. You can play around with them. As I've already said, I try not to use too many effects when I'm DJing. So the next thing is this section here with the EQ. If you hit isolate, it just acts as a regular EQ. So if you cut the lows get cut. So that's the first thing. And then you've got three other buttons here. These three other buttons add, cut and add, trans and roll, gate and drive. You might say, how can you have two effects in one button? Well, essentially what's happening is if I hit this, now we've got gate and drive activated. But if you turn it to the right, it will activate the bottom effect, which is drive, on just the highs, the mids and the lows. And if you turn it to the left, it will activate gate on any of these three parameters. So for example, if I press play now and I drive the lows, let's go to a bit that actually has a kick. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know. And if you turn it to the left, it gates. Now we've already kind of covered gate. It just lets the transients through. Which actually is an interesting sound, but again, I don't know why you'd want to do it live. Trans, we already know trans turns the sound on and off. Now, the interesting thing about this is the more you turn it, the quicker the trans effect becomes. And then you've got roll mode, which is where it takes a small amount of it and repeats it. Like that. And then add and cut. So add basically is like a boost. Okay, it's like it's turning up those frequencies. Let me get this straight. So add.
You're sitting down wondering what it's all about. You ain't got no money left. Who you are? Why don't you do right?
I got that wrong. Add isn't just boosting. It's kind of adding a delay, a bit of reverb. And then cut is doing what you'd imagine it would do. It just filters down. So that's all of those features there. Again, you know, it's just one of these things. You can play around with it. I find the thing I use the most, if I'm honest, is noise. Add it in, bring it up. That's one of the best ones. Now, and then you've also got this. So this is an area where you can literally drum in a pattern if you want. So you could go, let's turn it up a bit, pad level up. So you could be, I would never do this live, by the way, but you can. Now, the interesting thing is you could just kind of have a clap. So if you really wanted to, you could add a clap. Let's go back to a bit of this song that doesn't have a clap and add one in. Now, when you're doing the clap, you can also pitch it up and down. What people tend to do with this, which is something I hate, is they add their own snare rolls. So the way you can do it is if you put a snare on, now you can put your finger on any part of this and it will play the snare to the BPM of the track, which is really clever, and then you can speed it up. You can add your own snare roll and then you can pitch it up. Now, I don't like this because if we come back to this track I've been playing throughout this whole video, which is a track of mine called Roger Rabbit, which you can go and listen to if you want, I didn't put a snare roll in it. So I don't like the idea of somebody putting a big, ugly snare roll on a very minimalistic track. But I'll just show you what you could do if you wanted to. The next thing is there's a button here called overdub, which basically will loop whatever you play over a space of a bar. So you could turn this on and you could go. We've actually got to do this to the beat for this to work. So it's still going there, right? Again, I've cocked that up. If you get that wrong and it's not going completely to the beat, because there's no quantized feature here, if you're not going to the beat, it's going to sound freaking awful. And then the final thing is hold. So you know how I said you can come here and go. If you put hold on, it will stay there. And so that is it. That's the RMX. Again, just, I know I keep saying this throughout the whole video, but don't draw too much attention to yourself. Okay guys, that's the end of the video. I really hope this has been useful for you. I'm exhausted. I feel like I've just put as much information into this video as I possibly can. If you've liked it, leave a like, leave a comment. And if you would like to work with me to learn how to make your own professional dance music, like this track I've been playing through it, by the way, if you want, go to Spotify, type in Phil Harris, go and listen to some of my other music. And if you're interested, you can apply to work with me. I'll leave a link below this video, or jump on Instagram, send me the word main stage on Instagram, or just write to me and say, hey Phil, I'm interested in working with you. We can chat. If you're a good fit, we'll get on a phone call. If I think you're a good fit for the program, I'll work with you for 6 months and I will guarantee you a record label. Anyway, I'm going to go and have a break now. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll speak to you soon. Ciao, everyone.